हमें कब अपील करनी चाहिए, कितने दिन में अपील करनी चाहिए, अपील का प्रोसीजर क्या है, क्योंकि अब सब कुछ फेसलेस है, ऑनलाइन है। तो किस तरीके से हम अपील फाइल करें, किस तरीके से कितने दिन के अंदर अपील फाइल करें, क्या प्रोसीजर है, उस सब प्रोसीजर को जानने के लिए आज ही मीटिंग रखी गई है। तो अपने जो भी क्वेरीज हों, हम ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा अपनी क्वेरीज का हल निकाल लें। और उससे पहले थोड़ा सा अगर आपस में हम अपना ज्ञान बांट सकें, जो जो इनकम टैक्स में अपने अपील फाइल करते हो, तो थोड़ा सा कुछ शेयर करना चाहें तो प्लीज़।
अगर जो भाई इनकम टैक्स में काम करते हैं, आपकी जो अपीलों में किसी को प्रॉब्लम आ रही है या किसी ने अपील की हो, इस पर संबंधित कोई प्रॉब्लम आई हो, तो अपना शेयर करने से प्लीज। लेकिन सर ध्यान रखिएगा, इट्स रिकॉर्डिंग लाइव है, कोई
हाँ
ऐसी
हाँ
बात नहीं बोलिएगा जो प्लीज आपके अगेंस्ट जाए।
ऐसा है शर्मा जी, जैसे एक केस में क्या हुआ, डिपार्टमेंट में केस प्रोसेस कर दिया,
जी
सैलरी एक्सेस पे सैलरी पे टू पार्टनर्स उन्होंने ऐड बैक कर दी और 33,000 रुपये डिमांड निकाल दी। वो हमने पहले ही कंपटीशन में ऐड कर रखी थी। वो मैंने उसकी रेक्टिफिकेशन अप्लाई करी, रेक्टिफिकेशन उन्होंने रिजेक्ट कर दी, फिर दोबारा रेक्टिफिकेशन दी उसको। एक बार तो डिमांड नील होगी, पोर्टल पे नील दिखाने लग गया। बाद में उन्होंने 2 लाख की डिमांड, 2,10,000 की डिमांड निकाल दी, लेकिन ऑर्डर कोई नहीं आया पोर्टल पे अभी तक। कम से कम इस बात को 6 महीने हो गए, कोई ऑर्डर नहीं आया। उसके पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है, वहां पे हम क्या करें, उसका क्या ना करें। डिमांड शो हो रही है, लेकिन क्या उन्होंने उसमें एडिशन करी है, क्या प्रोसेसिंग करी है, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है।
154 का ऑर्डर नहीं आया आपके पास अभी तक?
154 का ऑर्डर नहीं है वहां पे कोई।
तो उसके लिए तो आप ग्रीवेंस डाल सकते हैं, ग्रीवेंस में आप
ग्रीवेंसीज भी
मेंशन कर।
डाली है, ग्रीवेंसीज डाली ने बहुत देर होगी, कोई स्टेटस नहीं उसका ग्रीवेंसीज का भी। आईटीओ को भी लेटर लिख दिया। आईटीओ पहले तो कहने लगा जी हम ऐसे कुछ नहीं कर सकते कुछ, जब थोड़ा सा मैंने प्रोसेस किया, कहता चलो कोई बात नहीं, आप मुझे भेज दो, मेल कर दो तो मैं देख लूंगा। अब उनसे बात करी, कल परसों बात करी, कहता अभी मैं जब 148 के नोटिस दे रहे हैं उसमें हम बिजी हैं, 31 मार्च के बाद देखेंगे आपका क्या है। तो समझ नहीं आता ये पोर्टल क्या कर रहा है क्या नहीं कर रहा, बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आ रही है। दूसरा जो अपील, अभी अपील फाइल करी ਨੂੰ बहुत बहुत देर होगी, वो फिक्स नहीं हो रही, उसका रिप्लाई कैसे फाइल करें, उसका सबमिशन कैसे दें अपील की, अपील फिक्स नहीं हो रही। पोर्टल अनेबल का तो आ गया पोर्टल आपका, अब सीआईटी अपील का पोर्टल अनेबल हो गया, लेकिन वो केस फिक्स नहीं हो रही, आप इस डेट तक अपना सबमिशन दे दो, कैसे करें, वो ऐसा कुछ नहीं है वहां पे। इसका भी कोई समाधान होना चाहिए। उसका उसमें मैंने मतलब उसमें रिप्लाई डाल दिया, भैया आप काइंडली फिक्स द केस, आई वांट टू सबमिट द माय रिप्लाई। उसके बाद कुछ नहीं हो रहा। ये अपने स्पीकर बताएंगे इसका कोई सोल्यूशन, जो आप किसी को कोई सोल्यूशन इसके
जी
आपके किसी के पास तो।
जी जी।
कोई सीआईटी अपील के ऑर्डर नहीं आ रहे, 4-4 साल हो गए। अपीलें उसका सारी कंप्लीट सबमिशन दे दिया उनको, कोरोना से पहले के दिए हुए हैं। तो पता नहीं, कुछ लोग तो शायद कोरोना में चल चल गए होंगे, उनका भी ऑर्डर पेंडिंग पड़े हैं। तो क्या करें, उसका कैसे ना करें।
किसी अन्य सदस्य की कोई और प्रॉब्लम? मेरे पास एक क्वेरी आई है। तो उस क्वेरी में क्या था, उन्होंने अपनी ITR 3 फाइल की थी। ITR 3 फाइल करने पे उन्होंने ओल्ड रेज्यूमे को ऑप्ट किया था। बाद में उन्हें किसी ने बताया कि आप उसे न्यू रेज्यूमे में करोगे तो उसमें आपका टैक्स बच जाएगा। तो वो न्यू टैक्स रेज्यूमे ऑप्ट नहीं कर सकते अगर एक बार से ओल्ड रेज्यूमे ऑप्ट कर लिया। तभी उनके पास कोई सज्जन बैठे हुए थे, उन्होंने अपनी ITR 1 फाइल कर रखी थी सैलरी की। सैलरी वाले केसेस में ऑप्ट की जा सकती है या नहीं, पहला तो क्वेश्चन यही था कि अगर हमने एक बार अपनी रिटर्न फाइल कर दी
सैलरी
है।
वाले में तो आप मतलब ऑप्शन है ही नहीं, आप जिस मर्जी में फाइल कर दो, सैलरी वाले में तो ये है
नहीं,
आप
रिवाइज
ऑप्शन की। जी बोलिए।
ओल्ड, पहले रिटर्न जो फाइल की गई है वो ओल्ड रेज्यूमे में की, उसके बाद वो रिवाइज रिटर्न फाइल करना चाह रहे हैं न्यू रेज्यूमे में।
कंप्यूटर चाहिए मेरे ख्याल में हो सकते होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि ऐसा ना न्यू रजिस्टर फाइल करना चाहता है, ऐसा आपने किया नहीं, वैसे कभी फाइल नहीं करा ऐसे ओल्ड में पहले बाद में
दरअसल
न्यू
दरअसल में
में।
उन्होंने उन्होंने कर दी है। हालांकि
होगी।
अगर नहीं होनी चाहिए तो पोर्टल पे ही उसे ऑप्शन
हाँ,
ऑफ
रोक
में
देता,
होना चाहिए था।
रोक देता, हाँ हाँ।
हाँ जी। तो उसने अपनी रिवाइज रिटर्न फाइल कर दी। रिवाइज रिटर्न फाइल करने के बाद
कर
में
देंगे, मीटिंग चली जाती है ऑनलाइन यार। जी।
रिवाइज रिटर्न फाइल करने के बाद में जो ऑर्डर आया है,
हाँ
उस
हाँ हाँ।
ऑर्डर में उन्होंने उस न्यू रेज्यूमे का बेनिफिट नहीं दिया, और जो उसकी डिडक्शंस थी, क्योंकि न्यू रेज्यूमे की रिटर्न फाइल
हाँ,
करने की
नहीं,
वजह से डिडक्शन तो कुछ फीड नहीं कर सकते थे, तो उसकी डिडक्शन नॉट अलाउड करके उस पर डिमांड निकाल दी।
अच्छा, ओल्ड में, ठीक है, समझ गया समझ गया।
तो उस केसेस में क्या करना चाहिए?
देखो, 154 की एप्लीकेशन ही बनती है फिलहाल तो, या टू,
154।
या 263 में भी जा सकते हैं, 264 में जा सकते हैं कमिश्नर के पास। बेटर है तो प्रपोज है कि 154 में जाए।
154 में गए, 154 में तो एज इट इज है, उसमें उन्होंने कोई बेनिफिट नहीं दिया।
अच्छा, नहीं 154 में जाके साथ में आपने उसकी एक्सएमएल फाइल, जेसन फाइल साथ में अपलोड करी वहाँ पे। हम्म?
नहीं, उसमें एक्सएमएल फाइल अपलोड नहीं की, उसमें तो हमने सिर्फ ये लिखा था कि हमने अपनी न्यू रेज्यूमे में रिटर्न फाइल की है, और इसमें हमारी टैक्स लायबिलिटी कुछ नहीं बनती थी, और हमारे
नहीं, ऐसे
इस
नहीं,
वजह से
उसको
हमने।
कंप्लीट रिप्लाई लिखना चाहिए, या तो एक्सएमएल फाइल दोबारा अपलोड करनी चाहिए उसमें। अब दोबारा कर दो उसमें
अगर
एक्सएमएल फाइल।
एक्सएमएल तो उसमें ओल्ड रेज्यूमे में डालते हुए करें, या किस तरीके
नहीं,
से
अब
करें?
तो न्यू में ही करोगे, अब तो न्यू में आप मांग रहे हो ना।
नहीं, न्यू में तो हमने रिवाइज रिटर्न फाइल की, वो उन्होंने एक्सेप्ट करी नहीं।
नहीं, एक्सेप्ट नहीं करी उन्होंने आपका, वो उसमें आपको ओल्ड में करके उसने कर दिया उन्होंने। तो आप प्रेशराइज कर, ये अब एक बात बताओ, आपने वो गवर्नमेंट पोर्टल पे फाइल करी थी, या मतलब किसी सॉफ्टवेयर से फाइल करी थी?
गवर्नमेंट पोर्टल से।
फिर तो देखो, गवर्नमेंट पोर्टल से करी तो आपको न्यू जिम का ही ऑप्शन करनी चाहिए मेरे हिसाब से तो। क्योंकि वो जब गवर्नमेंट पोर्टल ने एक्सेप्ट करी आपकी न्यू जिम में रिवाइज रिटर्न, तो
हाँ जी।
उसी पे ही प्रेशर करना चाहिए। तो उसकी अपील भी फाइल कर सकते हैं अगर टाइम लिमिटेशन है आपके पास तो। कितनी कितनी डिमांड निकली है?
1.5 लाख रुपए की डिमांड है।
ओह माय गॉड। तो उसको अपील का राइट नहीं गंवाना चाहिए इस केस में।
जी।
अगर टाइम टाइम पड़ा तो एक बार अपील जरूर फाइल कर देनी चाहिए। अगर इन द मीन टाइम 154 में इसकी अलाउ हो जाती है तो अपील विड्रॉ हो जाएगी।
बाकी इसके अलावा एक और क्वेरी आई थी,
हम्म,
उन्होंने अपनी रिटर्न फाइल की है। रिटर्न फाइल करने के बाद आधार से वो वेरीफाई नहीं हो पा रहा था, तो उन्होंने अपनी कॉपी साइन करके वहाँ पे सेंड कर दी, लेकिन वहाँ पे वो अभी तक रिसीव हो गई, लेकिन पोर्टल पे अपडेट नहीं हुई।
वो हो जाएगी, वो ऐसी ऐसी प्रॉब्लम पोर्टल की आ रही है। वो तो ग्राइवेंसेज में लिख दो उनको, आ जाती है
ग्रीवेंस
ऐसे।
ग्रीवेंस में लिख चुके।
हाँ हाँ,
उसके
उसमें भी
बाद
लिख
फिर
दो।
दो। जी। जबकि वहाँ पे कॉपी रिसीव, जो हमने उस
वो
स्टेटस
आपने,
चेक किया अपने डाक का, तो वो
हाँ हाँ,
रिसीव शो कर रहा है।
रजिस्टर लेटर में किया था।
स्पीड पोस्ट की थी, तो स्पीड पोस्ट का
हाँ
स्टेटस तो आ रहा है एक्सेप्ट, लेकिन
हाँ।
पोर्टल पे रिटर्न का एक्सेप्ट नहीं आया, रिटर्न इनवैलिड शो कर रहा है।
अच्छा, रिटर्न इनवैलिड कर दी शो उन्होंने।
हाँ जी।
ओह माय गॉड। तो किसी जो और तीन चार मेथड है बैंकिंग का है, उससे ई वेरीफाई कर सकते थे।
सर अब ऑप्शन नहीं आ रहा है ना सर, अब
बैंक
तो
का भी नहीं
क्योंकि
आ रहा
हम,
है, बैंक का तो है ना।
अब तो ई
बैंक
वेरीफाई
का
का ऑप्शन नहीं आ रहा है ना सर।
अब तो नहीं आएगा, उस टाइम हो सकता था ना।
जी जी।
एक बार उन्होंने इनवैलिड कर दी, लेकिन इसके बारे में इनवैलिड कर दी उन्होंने।
बल्कि जी इसमें
इस,
आप स्पीड पोस्ट से भेज दीजिए वहाँ।
जी।
मैंने भेज दिया, मैंने एक हफ्ता पहले भेजी, आज मैंने देखा एक्सेप्ट हो गई है मेरी।
एक्सेप्ट हो गई सर।
हाँ, एक्सेप्ट हो गई मेरी। मैं आज बल्कि एक बंडल और करा रहा हूँ स्पीड पोस्ट।
ठीक है सर, मैं
हाँ,
कल फिर
मेरी
कर।
एक्सेप्ट हो गई, मैंने प्रिंट भी निकाल लिया।
तो फिर तो लेट होगी सारी आपकी।
हाँ, ऐसा नेट के बाद उन्होंने स्पीड पोस्ट वाली एक्सेप्ट कर ली, वेरिफिकेशन वाला तो उन्होंने पोर्टल से हटा दिया। वेरीफाई तो हो नहीं रही
हाँ
किसी
जी।
मोड पे।
जी जी जी। पोर्टल
इसका
पे
मतलब
ऑप्शन
ये
अवेलेबल नहीं है।
आप
स्पीड
तो फिर
पोस्ट
लकी है,
एक्सेप्ट कर रहे
अगर
हो।
आप लकी है, अगर आपके आप डिपार्टमेंट आपकी जो आईटीआर वेरिफिकेशन के लिए एक्सेप्ट करता है तो आप लकी हो। मेरे हिसाब से तो वो नहीं करेंगे, क्योंकि टाइम लिमिटेशन निकल चुकी है ना उसकी वेरिफिकेशन की। हाँ भेज दो एक बार, ठीक है। आप उसकी रिटर्न तो सारी इन टाइम फाइल ही होगी होंगी आपकी।
हाँ जी, रिटर्न सारी इन टाइम फाइल है।
टाइम में दूसरे आईटीआर यू तो जाती नहीं ना, आईटीआर यू तो
जी
आधार से
जी।
वेरीफाई होती है, वो तो फिजिकल जाती नहीं।
हाँ जी हाँ जी हाँ जी।
ऐसे करना, जो आप भेज रहे हो ना, इसकी एक
जी
आपने ऑफिस में एक लिस्ट बना के रख लेना, कंप्यूटर पे बना के, इसकी जो रसीदें भेज रहे हो
हाँ
उसका
जी,
पूरा
वो तो रखते हैं सर।
पूरा बायोडाटा, उसका एक्नॉलेजमेंट नंबर, कौन सी डेट को फाइल हुई है, किस नाम है, क्या फाइल नंबर है। तो बाद में कोई उसकी जरूरत पड़ सकती है किसी टाइम पे। मुझे 5 साल बाद जरूरत पड़ गई ऐसे केस में उसकी। फिर मैंने वो जो अपील करी थी किसी पार्टी की, फिर मैंने उस सीए से उसका सारा डाटा मंगाया 5 साल बाद उसका। उसने 50 रिटर्न भेजी थी, उसके बीच वाली एक रिटर्न हमारी रहेगी, बाकी सारियां उसकी एक्सेप्ट होगी। उसका रजिस्टर की कॉपी मंगाई मैंने, रजिस्टर मंगवाया, उसका चेक किया। तो इसलिए
सर
ये पूरा डिटेल आप बना के रखना इसका।
ऑनलाइन अपील फाइल करने का प्रोसीजर शेयर करेंगे सर?
वो अभी अपना स्पीकर बोलेगा ना,
उनसे
वो
पूछेंगे
बात
सर थोड़ा सा अगर।
मैं
बीच में कर
आ
लेंगे
गए।
डिस्कस।
नहीं,
जी
विनोद
जी
भाई
जी
साहब आ गए, स्पीकर साहब आ गए हैं, वो बताएंगे भी, आएंगे थोड़ी देर में बताएंगे जब
जी
उनका टाइम।
जी 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 जी।
वो तो एक्सपर्ट है, हम तो फिर भी लेमैन है, ऐसी बात नहीं है।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
अब आ गए हैं, बाकी बताएंगे, सब डिटेल सब रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे उनसे।
जी जी जी।
समस्या हो निकाल लेंगे, तब पूछ लीजिएगा। बाकी इतने और अपना आप डिस्कस कर लीजिए अपना।
एक और क्वेरी है सर। उस क्वेरी में क्या था, एक एसएससी ने अपनी प्रॉपर्टी सेल की थी जहाँ का सर्किल रेट ज़्यादा था और एक्चुअल मार्केट वैल्यू कम थी। तो
जी।
उस टाइम पे ये 2016 का केस था,
हाँ, हाँ।
ऐसे फाइनेंशियल ईयर 2016 का। तो जब हम अपनी एक्सेल शीट से अपलोड करते थे तो वहाँ पे ऑप्शन आता था कि आप दोनों में से जो भी आप चूज करना चाहते हैं, जिस चीज़ पे आपने प्रॉपर्टी सेल की है। तो हमने उसमें अपनी मार्केट वैल्यू के हिसाब से टैक्स कैलकुलेशन करते हुए जमा कर दिया, क्योंकि उसमें काफ़ी डिफरेंस था। अगर हम सर्किल रेट के हिसाब से लेते तो टैक्स काफ़ी ज़्यादा बैठ रहा था। तो हमने मार्केट वैल्यू के हिसाब से अपनी टैक्स की कैलकुलेशन करते हुए रिटर्न सबमिट कर दी। उसके बाद जो ऑर्डर आया उसमें हमारी डिमांड निकाल दी उन्होंने, सर्किल रेट के हिसाब से एसेस करते हुए ऑर्डर पास कर दिया।
ये फेसलेस से ऑर्डर आया, ये उसका सीपीसी है?
नहीं, हाँ जी, सीपीसी से ऑर्डर।
अच्छा, सीपीसी वालों को कैसे पता चला शायद रेट ये ऐसा है?
सर वो सर्किल रेट और मार्केट वैल्यू तो दोनों डलती हैं उसमें, रिटर्न जब फीड करते हैं डाटा।
तो फिर आपने वहां पे गलती कर ली ना, आपने सर्कल रेट डालना नहीं था वहां पे। जो आपका रेट है, जो आपका मतलब एग्री प्राइस है, पार्टी के साथ एग्री प्राइस है,
वो
वो
तो
ही डालते
आजकल
हैं।
एआईआर से डाटा सब उठ जाता है ना सर, सब पता लग जाता है कि कितनी वैल्यू थी, क्योंकि स्टाम्प ड्यूटी तो उतने पे ही दी थी ना सर्किल रेट वाले पे।
अच्छा ठीक है, ठीक है। स्टैंप ड्यूटी आपने दी थी उसकी, जो मार्केट रेट है उसका, सर्कल
सर्किल
रेट।
सर्किल रेट, हाँ जी। लेकिन
हाँ, हाँ।
इनकम टैक्स जो पे किया वो हमने मार्केट वैल्यू के हिसाब से पे किया।
असेसमेंट कौन सा ये?
असेसमेंट 17-18, फाइनेंशियल 16-17।
17-18। अब तो केस स्क्रूटनी में तो नहीं आया इसका?
स्कूटनी में नहीं आया सर, लेकिन वो डिमांड निकली हुई है ना, 154 वगैरह भी लगाई उसमें।
कितने अमाउंट की एडिशन का फर्क पड़ता है?
68,000 रुपये टैक्स का पड़ रहा है।
60,000 का?
68,000।
68,000 का तो मतलब आपका मतलब है ये 3 लाख का करीब होगा, 3 के करीब।
जी 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 जी।
3 लाख हो गया, 20%
इसको
का है।
पेंडिंग रखो विनोद,
जी।
इसको पेंडिंग रखो अभी।
अच्छा चलिए।
अंकित जी और देख लें सर,
जी सर।
कोई नोटिफिकेशन सर्कुलर आपकी निगाह में आए हो?
एक जीएसटी की साइट पे एक ऑप्शन अवेलेबल हो गया है, जो हमारा सेम जीएसटी अगर कहीं और है सेम पेन पे कोई अदर जीएसटी है। अगर हमें अपना कैश लेजर से कोई भी अमाउंट ट्रांसफ़र करना है, किसी एक जीएसटी पे हमारा कैश लेजर में एक्सिस डिपॉजिट है और उसे हम दूसरे जीएसटी पे ट्रांसफ़र करना चाहते हैं, उसमें कंडीशन यही है कि सेम पेन पे होना चाहिए दूसरा जीएसटी भी, तो हम उसे ट्रांसफ़र कर सकते हैं। ये पोर्टल पे एक्टिव हो गया है। इसको ट्रांसफ़र करने के लिए हम जीएसटी में कैश लेजर में जाएंगे, जहाँ से हम अपना PMT09 फाइल करते थे, वहीं पे ही ऑप्शन कैश लेजर ट्रांसफ़र का भी ऑप्शन आ रहा है। तो उसमें भी हम सेम प्रोसीजर फॉलो करते हुए अपना कैश लेजर की अमाउंट दूसरे जीएसटी पर ट्रांसफ़र कर सकते हैं।
एक एक, एक नोटिफिकेशन है जीटीए की फॉरवर्ड चार्ज और रिवर्स चार्ज में ऑप्शन ऑप्शन की उसकी 15 तारीख लास्ट
हाँ
है शायद।
जी सर, 15 मार्च
15
उसकी लास्ट है। अगर कोई जीटीए अपना फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में एक्सेप्ट करना चाहता है तो उसके लिए भी वो ऑप्शन।
अगर एक्सेप्ट नहीं करता तो इट विल बी टेज रिवर्स चार्ज।
हाँ जी, फिर वो रिवर्स चार्ज में सामने वाला पे करेगा। अगर उन्होंने फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में एक्सेप्ट कर लिया तो फिर उनकी लायबिलिटी आ जाएगी। वो फाइनेंशियल ईयर के हिसाब से होता है, जो भी हमारा फाइनेंशियल ईयर के हिसाब से हमें पहले ही फॉलो करना होता है कि हम इस फाइनेंशियल ईयर में अपने फॉरवर्ड चार्ज के लिए एक्सेप्ट कर रहे हैं।
नेक्स्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर के लिए हो गया ना वो,
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
1/4 से एप्लीकेबल हो जाएगा।
जी
तो
जी जी।
उसका आईटीसी हमें मिल जाएगा जो भी हमारे पास है उसका, तो
हाँ
फॉर्म
जी,
चार्ज में टैक्स देना पड़ेगा।
हाँ जी। दोनों ऑप्शन अवेलेबल हैं उसमें, फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में भी। अगर हम आईटीसी क्लेम करते हैं तो अलग है, और अगर हम आईटीसी क्लेम नहीं करना चाहते तो अलग है। इसके अलावा किसी और की कोई क्वेरीज जीएसटी से रिलेटेड या इनकम टैक्स से रिलेटेड?
अंकित जी, एक जो अभी डिस्कशन हो रहा था कि ITR-V से रिलेटेड जो है
जी 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 जी।
एक्नॉलेजमेंट, तो उसमें मैंने एक बार देखा था, हालांकि मैंने उसको एक्सेस नहीं किया है क्योंकि मेरी कोई डिले ITR-V हुई नहीं थी। लेकिन एक ऑप्शन शायद मैंने देखा था कि कंडोनेशन ऑफ डिले करके एक ऑप्शन आता है पोर्टल पे, इनकम टैक्स की जो पोर्टल है
सर वो
उस
तब
पे।
आता है जब वो डिले में एक्सेप्ट करते हैं उसको, तब आता है
अच्छा
फिर वहाँ पे वो, उससे पहले नहीं आता।
अच्छा, उससे पहले नहीं आता है।
जी।
तो जिसका जैसे आप कह रहे हो कि ऑप्शन हट गया है, जो आई वेरिफिकेशन का
ई
है
वेरीफाई का ऑप्शन हट गया है।
हट गया है,
हाँ जी।
तो वो अगर शो करेगा कि भाई आपकी डिलेड रिसीव हुई है हमें ITR-V,
हाँ जी
उस
जी
केस
जी
में
जी।
वो ऑप्शन
उस
हम
केस में वो
एक्सेस कर
ऑप्शन
सकते हैं।
कंडोनेशन वाले को एक्सेस कर सकते
अच्छा, और वो डिले ऑफ कंडोनेशन में हम जैसे कोई रिटर्न अगर हमें डिले फाइल करनी हो तो उसके लिए भी ऑप्शन एक्सेप्ट कर सकते हैं वो वाला?
हैं। नहीं, डिले रिटर्न के लिए तो अब तो ITR-U है, उसके अलावा तो कोई ऑप्शन ही नहीं है।
अच्छा।
वो तो सिर्फ उसी के लिए है कि ITR-V आपकी अगर लेट गई है तो उसका डिले का रीज़न देना है, उसी के लिए 4 ऑप्शन आते हैं उसमें कि किस वजह से आपकी,
हम्म।
तो उन्हें सिलेक्ट करके आपको फिर अपना रिप्लाई देना होता है।
ठीक है ठीक है।
अंकित सर,
जी सर।
मैं तो हो सकता है वकील वाले क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछ सकता जो आप समझते हैं मेरे को। आप ये बताओ मेरे को, ये जो कंपोजिशन टैक्स वाला जो पहला टैक्स लगने के बाद में जो व्यापारी जो माल बेचता है उस पर जो 1% टैक्स देता है उसको क्या कहते हैं?
कंपोजिशन के अंडर स्कीम है
वापस
ये।
वापस से क्वेश्चन दे रहा हूँ।
जी।
कंपोजिशन स्कीम वाला परचेज करता है,
हाँ जी, परचेज करी।
वो टैक्स पेड किया,
हाँ जी।
वो माल बेचा,
जी।
टैक्स कलेक्शन नहीं किया,
नहीं, टैक्स कलेक्ट नहीं करेगा।
जो सेल किया
हाँ जी।
उसका 1% टैक्स दिया उसने,
हाँ जी।
उसको क्या कहते हैं जीएसटी में?
टैक्स में ही आता है वो, कंपोजिशन स्कीम के अंडर जो स्कीम है
उसका
उसमें सेल।
नहीं,
उस
इनका
टैक्स को
पर्पज है,
कहते हैं
उसका
क्या?
नाम क्या है, उसका उस टैक्स को क्या नाम बोलते हैं?
सर टैक्स ही होता है, कंपोजिशन
नहीं
टैक्स हो।
नहीं, ये तो मजा है। मैं बताता हूँ, उसको कैश ट्रेडिंग टैक्स बोलते हैं।
जी।
कैश ट्रेडिंग टैक्स,
कैस्केडिंग।
कैस्केडिंग टैक्स।
क्योंकि शुरू में 12% टैक्स पर फिर टैक्स लग रहा है 1%।
जी 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 जी।
मेरी जो समझ है
थैंक
वो
यू।
बताता हूँ, पूरा मत
नहीं सर,
मानिएगा।
थैंक। अरे नहीं, बुरा मान नहीं, कोई बात नहीं, नॉलेज है ये तो आपने शेयर की, थैंक यू।
ओके सर।
ये प्लेटफॉर्म मतलब पढ़ने का है। हम लोग यहाँ बैठ के सब पढ़ते हैं आपस में, कोई गुरु हमारी कोई प्रॉब्लम है तो जो गुरु लोग हैं वो समझाते हैं आके, इसमें कोई बुरा मानने वाली किसी चीज की बात नहीं है। और किसी भाई को सवाल हो तो पूछने, वरना टाइम बहुत कम रह गया है, हमारे मुख्य वक्ता भी आ चुके हैं। रचित रस्तोगी जी, कोई आपका सवाल हो?
नहीं सर, अभी कोई नहीं सर।
थैंक यू। मनीष गुप्ता जी।
अंकित जी एक
जी सर।
ये पूछें।
हाँ अंकित सर, मैं ये जानना चाह रहा था कि जैसे जीएसटी में अभी जो नोटिसेज आ रहे हैं लोगों को,
जी
तो उसमें ज्यादातर नोटिसेज में लिखा होता है कि आपको ये रिप्लाई इस डेट तक फाइल करना है।
हाँ जी।
तो मोस्टली जैसे 30 डेज का टाइम मिलता है, किसी में कम भी मिलता है, ज्यादा भी मिलता है। लेकिन अगर मान लो किसी का रिप्लाई फाइल ही नहीं हुआ है
हाँ जी।
और उसमें 30 डेज से ज्यादा भी हो गए हैं, लेकिन फिर भी ये ऑप्शन ओपन है, किसी को
हाँ
2
जी।
महीने हो गए हैं, किसी को 4
जी
महीने
जी
हो गए हैं,
जी जी जी।
और रिप्लाई ओपन मतलब रिप्लाई फाइल करने का अभी भी ऑप्शन ओपन है,
हाँ
और
जी।
उसमें रिप्लाई फाइल कर दिया जाता है, तो वो रिप्लाई
एक्सेप्टेबल है सर वो।
एक्सेप्ट है या?
हाँ जी,
और
एक्सेप्टेबल। जब तक किसी भी नोटिस के अगेंस्ट में कोई ऑर्डर ना हुआ हो तब तक हम उसमें रिप्लाई फाइल कर सकते हैं। सिर्फ रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल वाले नोटिस जो होते हैं वहाँ पे ये 30 दिन का टाइम लिमिट है, उसके बाद में फिर आप रिप्लाई नहीं फाइल कर सकते। सिर्फ रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल वाले में है ये ऑप्शन। बाकी अदर कोई
अच्छा,
भी नोटिस हैं तो वहाँ पे आप 30 दिन के बाद जब तक भी ऑर्डर ना हुआ हो तब तक आप अपना रिप्लाई डाल सकते हैं।
जब तक वो उसका ऑर्डर ना कर दें।
हाँ जी। आपने एक
अच्छा,
बार रिप्लाई
एक
दे दिया,
इसी
आप उसमें दोबारा भी रिप्लाई दे सकते हैं, ऐड रिप्लाई कर सकते हैं।
अच्छा, और उसमें जैसे ऑफिसर की तरफ से कोई हम अगर एडजॉर्नमेंट लेना चाहें तो वो ऑप्शन अभी तक नहीं आया है कोई?
एडजॉर्नमेंट कुछ केसेस में है,
हम्म।
जैसे 129 वाले नोटिस होते हैं, 122 वाले नोटिस होते हैं, वहाँ पे एडजॉर्न का ऑप्शन आता है। बाकी जो
अच्छा।
73 74 हैं इस तरह के नोटिस हैं या 61 के नोटिस हैं,
हम्म।
तो इसमें हम
इसमें
एडजॉर्न
नहीं
को
आया।
अपलोड कर दे रहे हैं, तो उसी से फिर वो अधिकारी
हम्म।
उसमें डेट डेट रिमाइंडर लगा देते हैं।
अच्छा अच्छा। तो
एडजॉर्नमेंट
वो
को अपलोड किया और उसमें एक्सेप्ट कर लेते हैं
अच्छा,
उसको।
उसे एक्सेप्ट कर लेते हैं।
हाँ जी।
क्या
तो
इसमें
अगर
रेप्लाई
किसी का
वाले
जैसे
ऑप्शन में भी डाल सकते हैं
जी सर।
अंकित जी?
हाँ जी।
रेप्लाई वाले ऑप्शन में भी डाल सकते हैं एडजस्टमेंट?
हाँ जी, रिप्लाई वाले ऑप्शन में ही डलती है, और कोई ऑप्शन नहीं आता वहाँ।
अच्छा
सर एक
अच्छा,
क्वेश्चन
ये
मेरा है।
जी
मनीष
अंकित
गुप्ता
जी,
बोल रहा हूँ सर।
जी 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 जी।
सर सेक्शन 61 में जो नोटिस आ रहा है
हाँ
उसमें
जी।
टैक्स का डिटर्मिनेशन टर्नओवर के हिसाब से भट्टे में ये लोग कर रहे हैं, ये क्या
जी
संभव तो है नहीं?
नहीं।
जैसे इन्होंने जो भी कोयला खरीदा उसको प्रोडक्शन मान लिया, उस प्रोडक्शन पे उन्होंने ईटा बना लिया, ईटे का सेलिंग रेट निर्धारित कर दिया, और सेल जो हमने दिखाई है वो माइनस करके टैक्स निकाल दिया।
देखो सर, 61 का नोटिस है, उसमें अभी आपको रिप्लाई देना है। रिप्लाई के बाद में अगर वो रिप्लाई को एक्सेप्ट करें या रिजेक्ट करें तो उसके बाद फिर वो 73 का नोटिस देंगे उसमें, 73 या 74।
ओके।
तो आप अपना रिप्लाई सबमिट कर दीजिए, उसके बाद में फिर जो दोबारा कोई नोटिस आएगा तो उसके बाद फिर।
अंकित जी, आजकल ये इनकम टैक्स में भी कुछ नोटिसेस आ रहे हैं जिसमें इंफॉर्मेशन मांगी जाती है एसएससी से किसी और
जी
क्लाइंट के रेफरेंस में, जैसे 133 कैन कैन से रिलेटेड कुछ आ रहे हैं।
जी 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 जी।
तो तो उन केसेस में भी जैसे रिप्लाई देने का ऑप्शन आता है और उसमें एक डेट दी जाती है। अगर वो डेट निकल जाती है और अगर वो ऑप्शन खत्म हो जाता है रिप्लाई
हाँ
देने
जी
के लिए,
जी।
तो उस केस में हमें क्या मैनुअल रिप्लाई देना चाहिए जिसके यहाँ से हमारे को नोटिस आया है, अगर नहीं दे पाते हैं उसका रिप्लाई तो?
अगर विद इन टाइम नहीं दे पाते तो हमें कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि उसकी एक रजिस्ट्री करा दें रिप्लाई बना के, और उसमें एक मेल भी दी हुई होती है, तो उस पर हम मेल भी कर सकते हैं अपना वैलिड रीजन देते हुए कि हमारे इस रीजन से हम विद इन टाइम अपना रिप्लाई नहीं दे पाए। बाकी आज
अच्छा,
हमारे बीच में हमारे मुख्य वक्ता हैं तो उनसे भी इस चीज़ को शेयर करेंगे तो वो भी सही
बिल्कुल।
मार्गदर्शन करेंगे। मैं अपनी
हाँ जी,
वाणी
हाँ
को विराम देता हूँ और
जी।
थैंक यू वेरी मच, थैंक यू वेरी मच सर। मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा प्लीज सब अपने फोन म्यूट रखें। देखिए वरना डिस्टरबेंस आता है, जो आपके सराउंडिंग में आपके व्हीकल्स चल रहे हैं उनकी आवाज आती है यहाँ माइक्रोफोन पे, उसको डिस्टरबेंस होता है जो बाकी और 100 लोग बैठे होते हैं, आपको नहीं पता पड़ता। इसलिए प्लीज सबसे पहले रिक्वेस्ट है अपना माइक्रोफोन म्यूट रखिए। थैंक यू वेरी मच। मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, हमारे मुख्य वक्ता आ चुके हैं, मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा अपने मोदी नगर से अरुण राघव जी, एक एग्जीक्यूटिव मेंबर साहब से, कि हमारे आज के मुख्य वक्ता साहब का परिचय दें, फिर से रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे कि अपना उद्बोधन प्रारंभ करें। अरुण राघव जी।
शुक्रिया भाई साहब, शुक्रिया भाई साहब, सादर प्रणाम। मेरी आवाज आ रही है क्यों?
जी जी आ रही है आपकी। नमस्कार।
शुक्रिया शुक्रिया। सर्वप्रथम इस वेबिनार में उपस्थित सभी सम्मानित व वरिष्ठ अधिवक्ता साथियों का उपकास के शानदार मंच पर हृदय से अभिनंदन व खैर मकदम करता हूं। मेरे लिए बड़े सौभाग्य का विषय है कि आज मुझे ऐसी शख्सियत के परिचय हेतु चुना गया है जिसने पिछले लगभग 31 वर्षों से अपने ज्ञान के बलबूते पूरे देश में ख्याति प्राप्त की है। हालांकि उनका नाम किसी परिचय का मोहताज नहीं है, परंतु हमारी जैसी एक परंपरा रही है कि उपकास के मंच पर हम सभी अपने अतिथियों व गुरुओं का एक सूक्ष्म परिचय आप सबके सम्मुख रखते हैं। इसी परिप्रेक्ष्य में आज के मुख्य वक्ता FCA आदरणीय नितिन भूटा जी का सूक्ष्म परिचय आपके सम्मुख रख रहा हूं। FCA माननीय नितिन भूटा जी इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स ऑफ इंडिया के वरिष्ठ सदस्य होने के साथ ही FCA, CWA तथा कॉमर्स ग्रेजुएट जैसी योग्यताओं से आपका व्यक्तित्व अलंकृत है। आप वर्ष 1992 में अपनी आर्टिकलशिप ट्रेनिंग पूर्ण होने के 16 दिन पूर्व ही CA बन गए थे। आप मुंबई स्थित नितिन भूटा एंड कंपनी के स्वामी हैं। इस वर्ष अर्थात 14 अगस्त 2023 को आप अपने व्यावसायिक कैरियर के 31 वर्ष पूर्ण कर रहे हैं। आपको अखिल भारतीय स्तर पर CA इंटरमीडिएट परीक्षा में 13वीं रैंक हासिल है। GST पैम मैगजीन, टैक्स गुरु और CA क्लब इंडिया जैसे सार्वजनिक डिजिटल डोमेन में निरंतर आपके लेख प्रकाशित होते रहते हैं। आपने बॉम्बे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट सोसाइटी तथा SP जैन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मैनेजमेंट स्टडीज द्वारा इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर स्टडीज पर संचालित कोर्स को सफलतापूर्वक पूर्ण किया है। आप निरंतर मुंबई व मुंबई से बाहर आयोजित स्टडी सर्कल्स सहित भिन्न भिन्न मंचों पर GST पर व्याख्यान देते रहे हैं। आप GSTR 9 व 9C की शंकाओं के निवारण हेतु WIRC पर पैनलिस्ट के साथ ही आप कॉन्फेडरेशन ऑफ GST प्रोफेशनल्स एंड इंडस्ट्रीज के संस्थापक सदस्य सहित मानद कोषाध्यक्ष भी हैं। आपको भिन्न भिन्न इंडस्ट्रीज जैसे एडवर्टाइजिंग, एंटरटेनमेंट इंडस्ट्रीज, रिसर्च कंपनी, फार्मास्यूटिकल्स व न्यूट्रास्यूटिकल्स कंपनीज, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज इत्यादि इत्यादि के विषय में अकाउंटिंग, डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेशन सहित मैनेजमेंट एडवाइजरी सर्विसेज के क्षेत्र में खुलासा करने का विशेषाधिकार प्राप्त है। वर्तमान में आप ऑडिट, डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेशन, मैनेजमेंट एडवाइजरी सहित कॉरपोरेट व नॉन कॉरपोरेट के अभियोग के मामलों में ट्रिब्यूनल तक सक्रिय रूप से शामिल हैं। इसके अतिरिक्त आपको यात्रा का और पढ़ने का बहुत शौक है। आपने भारत के लगभग सभी हिस्सों की यात्रा की है। साथ ही आप USA सहित कैरेबियन आइसलैंड की भी यात्रा कर चुके हैं। मैं हृदय से नमन करता हूं माननीय नितिन भूटा जी के भारी भरकम व्यक्तित्व को। अब मैं आग्रह करता हूं आदरणीय नितिन भूटा जी से कि वो आए और अपना ज्ञानवर्धन उद्बोधन प्रारंभ करें। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू
वेरी मच
अरुण जी। थैंक यू हर्ष शर्मा जी मुझे इनवाइट करने के लिए।
सर हमारा सौभाग्य है, इनवाइट नहीं किया था, हमारा सौभाग्य है कि आज हमें इतने ज्ञानवर्धक मतलब गुरु मिले, सब सो लर्नड जीनियस पर्सनालिटी.
I'm a novice. Let me tell you very honestly, I'm a novice. I learn every day from everybody. Let me tell you very frankly, I can't speak in Hindi. That is my drawback. But I will try to use the language which is as simple, which anybody can understand who are attending this particular session. So when I was planning to discuss the topic of faceless appeal, and as I was told, 99.5% members are advocates. And being a chartered accountant, I was thinking, what will I say before the legal fraternity who are very experts on every field? But then I thought, as a chartered accountant, we are tuned to understand the numbers, whereas the legal fraternity as advocates, you people have a flair to understand the language and the core aspect of communications. So when two professionals, chartered accountants and advocates, come together, it is a complementary role to play in the interest of all the stakeholders in general. So what I have done in my presentation, as I am been told, I have a time limit of 2 hours. And especially when we discuss any matters before the judges, we got to place our arguments within the time limit allocated. So I will try to restrict my discussions in a time span of 2 hours or even less than 2 hours. I'll put across all my views on the topic of faceless appeal conceptual framework. And I have structured the presentation in such a way which will explain the several aspects of appeal mechanism, which is instrumental for the faceless. Due to paucity of the time, I am not going to discuss the international jurisprudence on the faceless appeals or steps to file the appeal, because I assume each of the members who are present here, they are familiar with that particular aspect. And the complete presentation of how to upload the appeal on the ITD portal is available on the income tax portal, which anybody can just download and follow the steps. But whatever the relevant aspects of appeals that are to be taken into consideration by a member, be it an advocate, be it a chartered accountant, be it a taxpayer, I have considered everything in this particular presentation in the most simple manner. I have tried my best. What other things which I have tried to touch upon the principles of natural justice which can be applied to faceless appeals. But before I proceed to the core topic of discussing the faceless appeal, as a prudent policy, I always create a foundation first, because if the foundation is clear in the minds of the recipients, it becomes very easy to understand how do we correlate the foundation vis-a-vis the applicability of the provisions. So with this, I will share my presentation. Please kindly confirm I'm audible enough as well as the presentation is visible to everybody.
Yes, sir.
जी सर बढ़िया.
Okay, fair enough. So Let me tell you all the speakers will put the disclaimer in the end. I will put the disclaimer in the beginning in the interest of all the participants. Whatever I'm going to express, they are my personal views. It is not binding on my parent institution, which is ICI, or a WRC of whom I am the member, as well as the Tax Bar Association, especially the Uttar Pradesh Kar Adhivakta Sangathan, Tax Bar Association Chhattarpur, Madhya Pradesh, and Narmadapuram Haida Jila Tax Bar Association. I would urge everybody to read the law and advise your clients accordingly. And if I give any examples during my deliberations and which are similar to your clients, let me be very honest to tell you that I don't have an intention to disclose anybody's affairs in a public domain. The disclosure or similarity is pure coincidental. It will start with the foundation. Then I'm going to explain what is the objective and the meaning of faceless appeals. What are the peculiarities and the similarities of faceless concepts of appeal, assessment, and the penalty? What is the structure of faceless appeal and what are its functions? Which orders are appealable and which are not non-appealable? What are the standard list of documents that are required to be compiled when we have to file the faceless appeal? What are the analytical comments of faceless appeal procedures? What are the features of penalty proceedings under the faceless rectification proceedings? And what is the correlation between the faceless appeals and the appellate proceedings? Because now even appellate proceedings have become faceless from 25th June 2021. How the communication would happen in the faceless appeals between the faceless appeal center vis-a-vis the taxpayer as well as the consultants who are involved. What are the do and don'ts of faceless appeal? If that is taken care, lot of issues which is primarily encountered by many of us while filing the appeals, that can be resolved at the source level itself. What are the opportunities, threats, and the challenges that arise because of the faceless appeals? Whether instrumentalization of faceless appeal is a boon for the senior professionals who are not tech savvy. That also we will be discussing in this particular discussion. And what is the way forward? Future developments and the expectations that we can anticipate as the class. And what is the conclusion? This is the broad overview of my deliberations. So let me start with the foundation. Here, if you look at the picture on the left-hand side, this is the raw vegetable. And if you look at the right-hand side, it's a cooked food. So typically, whenever we are getting any data from our clients, it is in the very raw manner. But when we got to file the appeal before the appropriate authorities electronically, we need to fine-tune the appeal documents in such a way it is a cooked food available to the Commissioner Appeals, who is going to hear our arguments based on our statement of facts, grounds of appeal, and what are the relief that we are expecting from him. And that is to be served in a right, perfect manner. Then only it makes a sense for him to understand what we would like to convey. Here is the image of a house. Why do I use the image of a house? Let us think that appeal has to be constructed in such a way it lays down the strong foundation for us to win the case on merit, considering the facts and the grounds on which the relief has been sought. So there are multiple aspects to be seen when we are drafting the appeal documents. And whatever I'm going to discuss, it is the same thing applicable under the indirect tax provisions also, as well as under the customs also. Fundamentals will remain the same. It will not change. But let us spend some time to understand the digital footprint. Each one of us has our PAN number as well as our Aadhaar number, which is completely linked, and government has every data of the transactions that we are doing on a day in, day out basis. So if you link the PAN number and Aadhaar, which is again correlated with all your transactions, then government has got almost every information on their dashboard. So that government dashboard, what I look at it, is like an ocean of information which they have. Probably many of us think we should not report everything in our ITR or whatever the compliances that are applicable. We may refer to a certain aspects. We report certain transactions only, and certain transactions we don't report. So government is aware of what you are not reporting. Let me tell you very honestly. And this is what I'm like privy to many of the informations. So when we look at government is asking certain information from us, it is similar to the iceberg where we know what we are communicating to them. But when we look at the iceberg from its depth, it is what is the depth of the iceberg? It cannot be measured. So in fact, the more the disclosure, more the information that we share, if possible, it can always help us to defend the matter if any litigation arises. Faceless appeal as a concept is a nebulous concept. And to tell you very frankly, success of faceless scheme in many countries are watching towards India, the success of the faceless scheme. Another intention of the faceless appeals or assessments or the penalty is to do away the interaction between the two persons on one-to-one basis. They would like to eliminate the human interface completely. Other object of faceless scheme is to promote the efficiency. Let us assume that today we are sitting in our office, and if we have to go to the department, we will print the documents, we will travel to the department. Sometimes we have to wait for several hours outside the cabin of the officers. And ultimately, if there some urgency comes, then the meeting is shifted to the next day. That all such kind of a waste of time and energy can be done away because of the implementation of the faceless scheme. If anybody of you have analyzed the faceless assessment scheme, it's a group of departments, assessments units, verification units, technical units, and review units. They work as a team, and everybody, each of the department has been defined with their specific guidelines, what they are supposed to do and what they should do and what they should not do. In fact, both the teams will not interact with each other directly. They have to route the discussions through common national faceless assessment center. So one officer doesn't know who is the other officer. It may be in the next cabin, or it can be in the next town, or it can be other part of the country. Say the case is of Mumbai, and assessment may be happening in Chennai, when the technical unit verification may be happening at Delhi, and review may be happening at the Assam. And that is typically what is called a dynamic review of the data that we are filing electronically. The most important thing that is to be every data that we are uploading electronically on the portal, we need to ensure that the acknowledgement generated for such upload of the documents has to bear the hash value. If the document doesn't bear the hash value, then it is not uploaded correctly. So it is recommended to upload such data again. But if the hash value is generated, we need not worry at all. The other emphasis of the scheme is to optimization of the technology and all the communication to be done only in the electronic format. No physical communication at all. But here question comes to our mind, is it violative of our fundamental rights to be heard in person? If certain things we cannot explain by way of a writing, or we would like to argue the matter using the video conferencing option available on the ITD portal. Let me tell you about the video conferencing facilities of the department. It is absolute treat. We are not faced any issue at all as far as the uploading of the documents is concerned or hearing the matters are concerned. So it's a complete shift in the way when we look at it. But typically in the old system of appeal hearing, if we knew the commissioner well, we enjoyed our face value. And because of that, sometimes we were able to get the favorable judgments. But in this scheme, it is completely faceless. So face value has got no more roles as far as the faceless appeal is concerned. But let's look at the thing. Is it an old wine in a new bottle? What are we talking? Do any fundamentally things change? According to me, it is completely changed, because now every defense that we need to file has to be filed because of by way of a written submissions, which needs to be accurate, precise, concise, factual. Because in one-to-one assessment across the table, we used to just show the relevant portion and we just used to do away with the other disclosures. So this is my backyard of the house where I have a swimming pool. Let's imagine this swimming pool is our Income Tax Act. As per my experience, most of us don't even read the Income Tax Act. We must have read during our studies, but once we graduate or we become advocates or anything, we study the law only when the need arises. Especially, there are 600 sections, approximately 600 sections in the Income Tax Act, which many of us may not even have read it in detail. So my sincere request to all the participants here is to read the law. Don't read everything at one go, but do read and do keep a research, because you never know what will come to your help when you are defending any matters in appeal. But here is one thing which I would like to say. Everybody is familiar with the concept of SAC, which is the GST classification concept, but does it has got any ramifications under the income tax law? I will treat S stands for science. And when we look at the science, it is the research that is done in the science in a holistic manner to do some invention. Arts, where we communicate. And when we look at the commerce, it is the calculations. So when we are doing the submissions in the appeal proceedings, it is a combination of research. When I say a research, it is a research based on the Supreme Court judgments, High Court judgments, tribunal judgments, circulars, notifications. Arts, communication, the language that we write in our communication derives its foundation from the arts communication. Commerce, calculations are involved when there is a litigation involved in terms of the improper assessment of the income, either upwards, downwards, tax benefits allowed, not allowed. So that is to be proved. So we need to prepare a defense considering all three combination aspects of science, arts, and commerce. Here my simple question to everybody, which is the easiest or more difficult? Most of the people will say science is difficult. Somebody will say commerce is difficult. Somebody will say arts is difficult. But to my understanding, writing for the purpose of the arguments is the most difficult part. Because how do you represent your arguments, or how do you advance your arguments? So when we are looking at the submissions, it can be termed as a RCC, whereas it is a foundation, and it will help us to master the art of articulation and the representation in the appeal matters. Do we file the replies which are quality-wise superior, or we should follow the process of quantitative-wise? In my opinion, quality will always have a superiority. Quantity, yes, if the matter requires quantitative information to be filed, then we should opt for. But ideally, when we are uploading the information electronically, quality plays the significant role, because the reader of the document is interested in reading the document in the precise manner. And to draft anything quality-wise, we need a knowledge and the communication surrounding the matter. So old practices which we were following in the appeals has to be completely given up. Yes, experiences of what we have got in the old practice will definitely help in the precedence assessment. But we need to shift our focus from old practices to new practice, because that change is irreversible. There is no option that this will go back. This is my personal view. Let's look at units can be set up anywhere across the country. So it can range travel from anything to anywhere. And when it is used with the technology, it transfers the data very fast. And when it is a team-based assessment involved under the faceless assessment or a faceless appeal, it is like we also work as a team in our own offices. Even they are working on that line. Data and research, what we have is in our office is represented by the upper image. But the government data, what they have is represented by the below image. Please be very clear on this line. They have more data than we can think of. But before we go to further, let us understand the tax ecosystem, because tax ecosystem will provide the support in any defense that we are handling the appeal matters. Income tax law, it is consists of acts, rules, and the forms. Heads of income, income from salaries, income from house properties, profits and gains of business or profession, capital gains, and income from other sources. For each head of income, directions are given, restrictions are provided, provisions are also provided, and whenever we read any particular sections, it also prescribes what documents to be maintained, what forms to be filed, what procedures to be followed, and what are the alternative remedies available by way of a direction, restrictions or prohibitions. It also gives us the direction what is allowed as the deductible expenditure, what is not allowed, and what are the time limits within which we got to do all the compliances. So considering the directions, restrictions, and prohibitions, time limit of filing the appeal is derived under the fiscal ecosystem. And if we don't comply within the time limits, then the penalties, demand recovery, and the prosecutions are initiated by the law. So when we are defending any particular matters, we need to go to the source of the transactions to see what are the directions, guidance provided by the law itself, and then build the defense and the arguments in our appeals. That is my humble submission. So typically when we look at the books of accounts, before we will go anything, there is transactions which are done by the taxpayer, which are entered into the books of accounts, which are ultimately converted into the financial statements, which results into the computations, self-assessment, ITR, and TAR, which is the tax audit report. And once we file that documents, we receive the intimations, which is the verification of only arithmetical accuracy. Some of the cases are selected for scrutiny, assessments, and the rectifications based on the data filed, where whatever the returned income, either it is accepted, either it is increased or decreased, exemption and deductions allowed or disallowed, refund allowed, rejected, or maybe other reasons. But if you are not happy with the processing of the returns because of the injustice provided to us, we have the first remedy, rather second remedy, that is the CIT appeals, and where we seek the reprieve from the difficulty faced by us. And if we are not happy with the verdict of CIT appeals, we go to tribunal, followed by the High Court and Supreme Court, or alternatively, we go for the writ petitions based on the facts. So when we are looking at the upper part, it is an ascertainment which is done by the taxpayer, whereas intimation, scrutiny, assessment, rectifications, CIT appeals is the determination as to what we are filing or what we are doing, whether it is correct or not from the revenue assessment perspective. Let's spend 5 minutes or 3 minutes on this particular angle of tax developments. Everybody knows the income tax law is 10 decades old. So it is an established law, stable law. But if we look at the last 2 decades, where the DIT was introduced in 1981, followed by the PAN number in 1984, ITD portal was established in 2003, ITR filing in electronic form was introduced in 2004. Again, changes were introduced in PAN 2005. Electronic challan was introduced in 2005. TDS and corporate returns to be filed electronically was mandated from 2006. CPC was established in 2009. Other changes, especially the other changes, is very, very significant, which was introduced somewhere in 2016. Foundation of faceless assessment was introduced very silently. Many of the people were not able to capture that such an introduction has been planned. E-assessments were happening through email communications. Again, the scope was expanded. Then the e-assessment scheme in 2019.
No.
Faceless assessment was introduced on 13th August 2020. Faceless appeal from 25th September 2020. So any appeal filed post 25th September 2020 has to be filed electronically. There is no choice. Faceless penalty has been introduced from 12 January 2021. New ITD portal was launched on 7 June 2021. Faceless tribunal was introduced on 25th June 2021. And more developments are happening as we see. But if you watch the data that is seen on the screen, the timelines is getting reduced day by day. And that is only because of the technology developments. And very important thing, whenever we are defending any matters for the purpose of appeal, always remember the contours of the charter published by the tax department. We can always take a defense if we feel that something is not being done proper in our interest, and if we can correlate with the tax charter, we can put it as our ground of appeal in the documents. Same way, even a taxpayer is expected to do certain things. He is expected to be honest, compliant, maintain the records, respond in time, to pay in time. So now let's look at some angles of faceless assessments, because ultimately whatever happens in the faceless assessments, we got to touch. That will be the base on which we'll be doing the appeals. Assessment unit will make the assessment, or it will carry out the reassessment. They will identify the issues. They seek the information. They will analyze the information. Verification units will do the inquiry. Cross verification. They will do the examination of books. They will examine the witnesses. Physical verification on approval of Principal CCIT of National Faceless Assessment Center. Technical unit is the brainchild of all the litigations that are arising. Let me tell you very honestly, earlier it was not functional, but now it is fully functional. It acts as a knowledge bank or repository. It is similar to when we have any issues, we approach our senior friends or the experts in the field. So it is similarly, if the departmental team has got any issues, they will approach the technical units. They will assist in legal part. They will assist in accounting part. They will assist in the forensic part, information technology, valuation, transfer pricing, management, or any other matter. Scope is too wide. And review units will examine the draft order. They will ensure that whatever you have filed in the assessment proceedings electronically, all facts are incorporated. Issues on additions as well as the disallowances are properly discussed in the assessment order. Whether rebuttals are properly considered or not, and judicial review also will be examined by the review units. And this is the core. Why review unit? The purpose of the review unit is to minimize the litigation. But does that happen in realistic manner? The answer is little different. And they also verify the arithmetical accuracy. When we look at the diagrammatically the faceless assessment, national faceless assessment is at the center. It will communicate with the assessee as well as the CPC Bangalore, as well as with the third parties. And if information has to be sought, then it will sort from the jurisdictional assessing officer also. There was one level down, there was a regional faceless assessment center. Now it is not there anymore. And all assessment units, verification units, technical units, and the review units work under the aegis of National Faceless Assessment Center. And how it will communicate with each other, it's on the next slide. But the beauty is key, none of them will communicate directly to each other. It has to route the discussion only through National Faceless Assessment Center. That is what the whole purpose is. Key, no human interface to be involved. And this is the way, in a simple manner, you can understand key, what is the process. Every document has to be digitally authenticated. So whenever we receive any communication from the department, we need to see whether it is properly digitally authenticated or not. Especially time. Time is very, very significant. DIN number is there in the notice or not. If DIN number is not there, that notice is not valid. You need not even bother. You can just file. You will file your objection saying that there is no DIN. But remember, any notice that you get from the department, you got to file a reply, irrespective whether it is valid or invalid. So if it is invalid, you can say in your communication, it is invalid notice because of so and so reasons. Do specify, but don't ignore the aspect of non-replying. That is my sincere suggestion to you. It will be sent to the registered account of the taxpayer. It will go to the email registered on the portal. Ideally, I will recommend each of you not to register your email ID at all. Register the email ID and the mobile number of the client as the first recipient. You may use your second ID as a secondary recipient. That is fine, so that you can monitor that particular thing. But for heaven's sake, don't use your own ID unless and until it is absolutely necessary. Mobile app is yet to be launched. Soon it will come. And the SMS notifications. Can they make a phone? Can they visit? Can they make a courier? Can they send by a post? Technically it's done away. But still, some reminders are still coming for the demands and all. So if you have registered as a primary person, then you will get all the communication. But if you are represented as an authorized representative, then also you will get the communication. And look at the way from the digital footprints, all connections, continuous reminders is sent to the client. Continuous. That is my experience. How do we file the electronic response? Change has been provided from September 21, whereas EVC and DSC authentication is done away as per Rule 14C. You can submit your response either full or partial, but ensure the acknowledgement generated has got the hash values. Maximum 10 documents can be uploaded at a time. It can be either in PDF, XLS, XLSC file or a CSV format file. Typically, everybody uploads in PDF because that cannot be disturbed. Size limitations are provided on the portal, which most of you will be aware. So when we are doing the submissions, when we do the compilation, plan your strategy, whether it will be partial submission or a full submissions. But if you are doing the partial submissions and then you are filing the full submissions, in the covering letter, please write the transaction IDs of the previous communication as a record. File names, you cannot use this kind of a special character. The reason why this is not provided, is if you use this particular kind of a characters, it can be, the data can be hacked very easily. That's why such special characters are not permitted to be used. Only they allow you hyphen and the underscore to be named behind the file. It can be EVC, OTP or DSC, choose the thing. It was there earlier, but now it is not there. Adjournment can be claimed on a suo motu basis. But if we are claiming the adjournment at any point of time, please specify the correct reasons. Don't give the false reasons. Be genuine. Personal hearing and the video conferencing only is post draft assessment order, but now draft assessment order has been replaced by the income computation or loss determination proposal. Reasons are provided. You got to be very, very clear what you would like to write. Section 288 provides who can be the authorized representative. He can be a chartered accountant, it can be assessee, it can be related person, it can be tax practitioners or the advocates, it can be employee or any other person. You got to file the appointment and it will be accepted or rejected. Power of attorney or a letter of appointment stamping has proper stamp duty needs to be paid. Every state has a different stamp duty. Format was provided on the old ITD website, which can be still followed if you have maintained, or we can draft the format as per our requirements. But here question comes, if they have a team who is going to do the assessment, can we have a multiple authorized representatives which can be appointed by the taxpayer to defend the matters? As of now, to my knowledge, what I have seen, multiple appointment of the authorized representative is not possible. But typically what we should do, if we need a couple of people, a common letter of authority with A or B or C can be uploaded for the purpose of the defense. That is the practical solution which one can take. Let's come to the prima facie adjustments or a reassessment notices. When we look at the prima facie adjustments, it may arise on account of the arithmetical error in the IT returns that we have filed, incorrect claim made in the IT returns, disallowance of loss, which we have claimed, which was for which the return was filed late, disallowance of expenditure or increase in income based on the tax audit reports, which has been uploaded on as per the timelines provided, disallowance of deduction claimed because the time limits have expired or forms are not filed as required as per the limits provided under section 139(1). Addition of income appearing in form 26As or form 16A or form 16, which are reported either in form 26As or AS or TS as the case may be. And typically when they issue such an intimation, they will always say to you, okay, we are going to plan to add this, but you should file the objection and file suitable defense so that they are mandatorily required to examine the reply filed. They got to consider and thereafter they are expected to pass the 143(1) intimation. Let us assume if after filing the submissions also, they don't consider the documentary evidence of filing the objections and your reply can help you as you can specify as a statement of fact in the appeal documents. You can consider that as a ground of appeal also. So that can help you to draw the support. So we have come across various notices issued under section 139(9), and we have defended very well with the submissions, and they have been processed without any additions perfectly, as long as we were able to support it with the documentary evidences. We have got the other way around experiences also, but then it is a matter of litigation. These are the pertinent litigation issues which we have seen in several of the cases. Notices are issued with short timelines. Say notice was issued on 13th of August or say 14th of August, and they said you should file a reply on 16th of August. 15th being the national holiday, can it be expected that taxpayer or an advisor file a reply which is such a short notice? And if such is the case, it can be always a ground for appeal. The notice issued was bad in law. Whether it is an old provision of reassessments or a new provisions of reassessments, on both the levels you can take this ground. Replies were filed in the assessment proceedings, but they are not considered while passing the order, which is either 143(3) order or 148A notices. Especially in the reassessment notices, the department is expected to prove the burden of income escapement. And if it is not proved, that notice itself is bad in law. If the assessment order is passed, but incorrect section is quoted, or section not maintained, or the order passed is a non-speaking order, then again it is a bad in law. Sometimes the show cause notices are not issued. Or especially in 148 reassessment notices, we have observed the department has not provided the relied upon documents to the taxpayer even after making a request to provide them, and because of that, taxpayer has to go to the High Court to seek a relief by way of a writ petitions. Show cause notices contents are different as compared to the additions made in the assessment order. Limited scrutiny has been expanded to a complete scrutiny without approvals. Findings of the income tax officers are without verifications, or data collected or data is considered as a duplication of a data while passing the regular orders as well as the reassessment orders, just to ensure the notices of 148 are valid. And this typically may arise because of the data sharing between the departments, where they don't apply the brains before issuing the notices. Especially when the reassessment notices are issued, returns should be filed mandatorily, and post-filing of the returns, they are expected to issue 143(2). But many instances we have come across is they have straight away issued the 142(1) questionnaire, which is not legally correct. Sometimes the approvals are not obtained properly. It was required of principal commissioner, but they have taken the approval of the commissioner. That is incorrect. But typically, whenever we encounter any notices of reassessments, we should always seek for the digital trail of such notices from the department by way of filing the request with the jurisdictional assessing officer. Invariably, it may mean a harassment to us, or it may mean we may need to travel a couple of times to the department, but that exercise is worth. The reason is, if they have not proceeded, the approval process is not in place, that notices may turn out to be totally illegal. If the officer is who had originally issued the reassessment notice by recording the reasons, but then there is a change of guard, new officer comes, he is really again required to examine the reasons. He may repeat the same reasons, but he has to apply his mind. He cannot just issue the blanket notices, or a change of opinion is also not allowed. So digital trail, what we see, we should always insist on. We have seen a couple of cases ki notice was issued on 28th of March, whereas the approval on the digital trail came on 31st March. So the notice itself became invalid, and if the notice issue itself is invalid, proceedings cannot proceed further. Opportunity of hearing not given. This is not the personal hearing that we are talking of. It can be video hearing. But here one thing, whenever we are applying for the video hearing, based on the facts, the complexity of the matter and the stakes involved, we should seek for the opportunity of hearing. And as a last resort, if we feel personal hearing is required in every submission, from the first submission itself, we should make a request in our submission saying we would like to hear, we would like to hear the matter in person. Always specify in your communication. Several times draft orders are not issued. If there is no addition made, then the draft order is not issued, not a problem. But if there is an addition, issue of draft order is mandatory. And assessee has an opportunity to file the reply against such a draft order. But here question comes, if there are two orders are passed, one is the draft order and one is the final order, which would survive? Draft order has provided for the addition and final order has not provided for the submissions. In that case, in my humble view, we should point out such a mistake to the authorities, because they should not say you have not pointed out the mistakes, because mistakes can happen from either side. Whether the notice is served properly or not. But here, let me just bounce off one particular situation. If a taxpayer, his matter is under the assessment, either regular assessment or reassessment, and he has no access to his email ID or a mobile, can he claim the day I am notified, that is the day on which I have received the notice, and from that day, my time period of filing the appeal will start? In my opinion, that can be argued 100% subject, but you have to prove that facts. If the notices are issued because of the search cases prior to 1st April 2021, whether notice to be issued under section 148 or under section 153C, in my humble opinion, notice has to be issued under section 153C. If the notices are issued under section 148, they are not valid. And there is a recent Bombay High Court judgment on the penny stock matters. Notices under section 148 are invalid. Notice has to flow in under section 153C. One adjustments we have seen, defective notice we have touched upon. Again, most of the litigations arise from the unexplained family of sections, which all of us are familiar with. Section 68A, 69A, 69B. Everyone should read each of these provisions under lenses and file a defense suitably based on the facts. Method of accounting, inclusive method of accounting, exclusive method of accounting, ICDS issues. If it is ICDS are applicable, but we have not complied, system algorithms are catching such aspects. Accounting standards issues also, which they may examine from the notes to the accounts. Valuation issues of the properties. I think before we started a session, there was one of the participants had raised this question on the valuation. For example, if the stamp duty valuation is say 5 crore rupees and the agreement value is 6 crore rupees, but valuation officer has valued the property at 10 crore rupees. Which one will survive? Will it survive 6 crore or 10 crore? In my humble view, 6 crore will survive. Valuation done by the departmental valuation officer will be ignored because section 50C is a code by itself. So, which provides for the higher of the two, that value will be considered on which the taxable is payable. But take the another example. If after filing the returns, taxpayer has filed the request under section 55 for valuing the property, and departmental officer has valued the property at a value which is lower than the ready reckoner value, in a case where the agreement value is lower and the ready reckoner value is higher, in that case, for the purpose of the assessment, whatever the value that is determined by the valuation officer will be considered. Non-disclosure of the information, there's a typo error in this presentation. If you have not disclosed the information pertaining to your partnership as a partner in LLP or as a director in the LLP, or foreign assets are not disclosed, then the notices are issued under the respective provisions. Section 43 disallowances are 40A1 or IA disallowances, which are reported in the tax audit reports, which are not considered, even that is issues arising on account of the brought forward and carry forward of the losses. Deemed dividends, it's applicable to the corporates only. Clubbing of incomes, very rarely seen, but it definitely comes up. Succession issues, notices are issued to a deceased person. Can a notice be issued to the deceased person? My answer is no. But if the notice is served to the taxpayer and thereafter he has expired, then such a notice is valid. High pitch assessments, notice authentications, approval approvals we have discussed. Deviation in the draft order and the final order we have discussed. At times we see prejudiced mind or other reasons. Last minute deadlines are getting expired and they pass the orders abruptly. That can happen. Let's look at the old provisions of reassessments. Emphasis was always on the reason to believe, and time limit was 4 years for the normal, 4 years from the end of relevant assessment year. And if the income escapement exceeded 1 lakh rupees, it was the 6 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. But if it was the income from overseas, then the time limit was 16 years from the end of relevant assessment year. Section 148A was introduced in 2001, further expanded in 22. And again, it is going to be expanded again and again as and when they have reduced the time limit to 3 years. So normal limit is reduced to 3 years. And where the income from asset is exceeding 50 lakh rupees, the limit is 10 years now from the end of relevant assessment year. But here a point to be noted is that reference to the overseas assets is done away. So if anything is getting reopened on account of the overseas matters, then there is no time limit. 10-year time limit is not applicable. It can be any number of years. Please understand this very, very clearly. Especially 153A search or survey cases on or before 31st March 2021. Black Money Act and the PMLA will trigger if there is a overseas are involved. Especially the explanation has provided the following exceptions: risk management strategy, issue arising out of the CAG 1990A, double taxation avoidance tax benefits, section 135A, income derived from a faceless collection of the information, or issue arising on account of the tribunal and court. So this is the instances which is typically applicable to the reassessment. typically if you receive any kind of a notice on account of the reassessment, it will be typically issued by the jurisdictional assessing officer. National Faceless Assessment Center cannot issue the reassessment notices. It will be received by the assessee. One should file the return of under 148 without default as per the timelines provided. But please take care to file the request for reasons for reopening. And if it is conveyed in the notice, fine. Always file the cross objections. Considering the objections filed, he is required to pass the speaking order. And based on the speaking order, if he feels it is not to be reopened, then that matter will die at that stage itself. There you are doing a physical connect with the officers. But if he says, yes, I got to proceed with the reassessment, he will reopen the assessment, but he will transfer that to the National Faceless Assessment Center. His role is over. He can't do anything beyond than that. Then whatever the normal procedures are to be followed under the Faceless Assessment Center, that is to be followed. But here, it's a golden opportunity to declare if you have missed out anything in such a case, and probably you may save additional penalties that can be levied based on the merits of the matter, considering the mistakes, minor error or not a significant error, or it can be argued for not levy of the penalty under section 270A. And this is what the source is. This change has come because of the GKN Dry Chefs Supreme Court judgment. Everybody knows that Sunil Agrawal judgment created lots of issues, and because of that, circular was also issued by the CBDT, which talked about, which made everybody to think that they can travel to the past instead of traveling to the future. Because when we look at the commentaries of introducing the new section 148A, intention was to minimize the litigation and to help the taxpayers. But that is very common considering the various pertinent issues that we have seen. We can defend the matter based on each of the matters. And if by any chance, if the documentary evidence is not provided, you have a very good ground to seek a relief at the appeal level or at the tribunal level if you don't get a relief at appeals. But you should not give up. That is what my personal views. But here one question that comes to mind, in normal we are asked to keep the books of accounts for 6 years. And they are talking about the 10 years. How it will happen? That's the food for thought. And this is the various timelines which I have tabulated as per my understanding, considering the recent judgments of the Delhi High Court and the Gujarat High Court. Reopening of the assessment proceedings up to assessment year 15-16 are considered as invalid. So we can take a defense separately. And circular issued by the CBDT, they wanted it to be treated as a retrospective beneficial for them, but that is not correct. We are expecting some judgments to come for the financial year 16-17 and 17-18 also. Let us wait and watch this space. We can prepare a defense, but if you have received any kind of assessment notice, please take a ground. It is bad in law, so that at the most at the higher level it can be rejected, but do take a ground. Don't give up anything. Penalty notices. Let me touch upon something on the penalty notices which may arise according to the common mistakes or mistakes which are done with the intention, either in the total income reported and which is disclosed in the return of income. Common mistakes are uncommon, which we don't even realize. But mistakes which are done intentionally, they are always confusing. And if they are noticed, it results into late fees, defective returns, rectification, tax demand, and the penalties. But essentially, when we look at penalties, old penalties which were levied on account of the concealment of particulars of income or furnishing of the inaccurate particulars of income, which was governed by the section 271(1)(c), it was discretionary. And there are enough judgments available on the points where penalty cannot be levied by the department. But now, concealment of particulars of income is been done away. It is replaced by the concept called under-reporting of income, and for which the notices are issued under section 270A. And furnishing of inaccurate particulars of income is replaced by the word misreporting of income. In my personal view, intention of amending the penalty provisions was to rationalize, to examine the issue objectively, to provide the certainty, and to provide the clarity. But whether the moot question is it mandatory? My answer is, it is not mandatory. It is still discretionary. Mandatory is only for the purpose of the levy. But if defense filed at any level which supports the view that it was a genuine mistake, then the penalty cannot be levied and it may be dropped at the instance of the assessing officer, or it can be dropped by the commissioner, as the case may be. And these are the various instances which they have provided. But beautifully, if I look at the terms under-reporting of income or misreporting of income, is not defined anywhere in the Act. So it has to be understood as understood by the normal parlance. And what they have disclosed, they are all illustrative. They are all inclusive informations. And one other significant fact that is to be kept in mind is there cannot be double levy. It can be either under-reporting or it can be misreporting. It can't be both. An order has to be in writing. And judgments are available which we can take as a defense to support. And especially when it is provides for the issue of show cause notice, my view is further emphasized. Still, penalty is not leviable mandatorily. It is discretionary. Let's come to faceless appeals. Faceless appeal scheme was launched in 2020. An intention was to foster greater efficiency, transparency, and the accountability by eliminating human interface, which we have already seen, between appeal units in the appeal to the extent possible by harnessing the technology, optimizing the use of resources through economies of scales and functional specialization, introducing an appellate system with a dynamic jurisdiction which an appeal shall be disposed by one or more appeal units. But with the advent of technology, more and more cross-linking of data can be anticipated, and everything needs to be transparent, and we need to first validate and corroborate every information that we are filing at any stage, be it at the first stage or a second stage of litigation or a third stage, as the case may be. I treat, according to me, what I feel alphabetically. F stands for factual. It should be flawless, fruitful, and flamboyant, loud and extravagant. A stands for accuracy, assertiveness, artful, and astute. C stands for communication, contactless, crafty, and clear. There should not be blame in the communications made, and that should be taken care by the taxpayer as well as the commissioner, both. It is an enterprise, it is an innovative scheme. It is efficient, effective, effectual. It is limitless, laterally or latitude-wise or longitude-wise. It is energetic, eyeful, economic, endless, seamless, symbolic, stress-free, stakeholders, all stakeholders. It is strategic. It is a system-driven synchronization of each and every data that has been filed, and it is smooth. These are the common terms which I have used in the presentation. Let's understand the peculiarities and the similarities of the three schemes. When I look at the definition of the appeals, assessments and the penalty definition simultaneously, eliminating the interface between the commissioner appeals and the appellant in the course of appellant processing to the extent technology possible. Now read that same wordings are used in assessment as well as in the penalty with the different contextual references. So when we look at the language of the government to introduce any provisions, so in future we anticipate any other kind of a faceless proceedings to be introduced, the language will remain the same. So if you have mastered one particular section, mastering of another section will become very, very easy. Look at the second part, optimizing. They have used the same language without much of a change. So this is the way we would like to study the angle, and whatever the discussions that we have, that can be applied all across simultaneously. Earlier, there was a National Faceless Assessment Center followed by the Regional Faceless Assessment Center and the assessment units. But now, Regional Faceless Assessment Center is not there from December 21. Now it is replaced by the Commissioner Appeals at all levels. Finance Bill 2023 has created a new designation, JCIT Appeals, to reduce the burden of disposal of the appeals. One of the participants in the, before the session was started, was saying that we are not receiving the appeals orders, even though we have filed 4 years back. Hopefully with this, that issue may be resolved in future. And these are the functions to be followed. Whatever the functions of the regional faceless assessments are there, they are taken over by the National Faceless Appeal Center, that is Commissioner Appeal. And it is expected that Commissioner Appeals will conduct the appeal proceedings in a fair manner. They will dispose the appeal. They will admit the additional grounds of appeal. After making a proper inquiry, proper directions will be given to the National Faceless Appeal Centers or assessing officer, as the case may be, for seeking the verification. But only point here, what I would like to add, they have been given an option to approach the technical units or verification units. Why that option should not be provided to the taxpayer, which is one of the drawback in my personal opinion. Granting of opportunity to be personal hearing to be given, analysis of the information, review of the draft order, and determination of the jurisdiction. Whatever the appeals that we have filed under the old assessments will get migrated to the new system. And if they are not migrated, it is department's issue. You don't have to worry at all. But the moot question that arises, will the CIT appeals under the faceless appeal scheme will have access to the old records that are filed? It is expected that they should upload these documents electronically. Department will upload, not you. But practically, if anything that happens, taxpayer is asked to refile that documents electronically. That is what we have seen. And to cooperate in the interest of the taxpayer, we do that. But here another question, if there is a communication that happens between the National Faceless Assessment Center or a proper officer or an assessing officer that is not shared with the taxpayer, and taxpayer is not in a position to file the cross objection, again that is the lacuna of the scheme. In my personal opinion, government should provide such a internal communications to the taxpayer so that if any cross objections to be filed, then that can be filed. But as of now, that option is not there. Standard operating procedures should be made public, but as of now, to my knowledge, I have not come across. If anybody has come across, please kindly enlighten me. This we have seen in the earlier, in the faceless assessment. Structure remains the same for the faceless appeal. Earlier, it was known as an assessment unit. Now it is a commissioner appeals only. There is no concept of verification unit or a technical unit or a review unit. Under the original scheme of faceless appeal, order of one commissioner was to be validated by the second commissioner, but that is not there anymore in the new scheme from the December 2021. And that was the objected by the each commissioners because both of them are the quasi jurisdictional officers. What are the appealable and non-appealable orders? Anything that you encounter by way of assessment proceedings, by way of filing of the return of incomes or TDS related matters or the penalties can be appealed. But if it is pertaining to the TDS under section 195, then under 248, you can file the appeals. But there are some appeals which can be filed straight away to the tribunal under section 252. When the income is assessed in accordance with the direction of the dispute resolution panel under section 144C. Order passed by the Commissioner of Income Tax or a higher authority for 12A, 12AB, 80G to section 263 or penalty orders by the commissioners or above, or GAR orders passed by the AO under the approval of principal CIT or CIT under section 144BA. What is not appealable directly to the tribunal? Refusal of immunity provided under section 270AA. Amount of interest under section 234A, B and C. Appealable orders pertaining to the assessing officer for giving effect to the appellate orders. Order giving effect to APA under section 92CD, subsection 3. Order passed by the assessing officer giving effect to the direction of CIT appeals. What is non-appealable? Serious fraud in investigation matters, major tax evasion matters, sensitive and search matters, international taxation matters. As of now, they are out of the faceless appeal, but in future, all this will get migrated to the faceless appeal sooner or later. Black money, that is another which cannot be filed appeal. It will go through a normal process of the appeal, which we are filing under the old regimes of filing the appeals. Partial partition of the HUF can be filed as an appeal. Updated returns can be filed under the appealable orders. Lower deduction tax certificate issued in Form 30 cannot be appealed. Agreed additions in the assessments or the rectifications cannot be filed. Interest under section 220C. Order of refusal for a grant of stay of demand. Issue of TRC certificates. These are the typical documents which are due. Order copy has to be uploaded. Notice of demand under section 156. If it is an appeal against the levy of penalty, order from which the penalty arose, TP order if applicable, evidence as regards the payment of appeal fees. And typically, whenever we file, it will be supported by the statement of facts, grounds of appeal. That is to be done. This is to be all to be done electronically, and self-certified copies of each of the document is more than enough. Filing fees based on the limit is provided, and if you short pay, then the appeal will not be processed accordingly. That care has to be taken. Sometimes many people find an issue at the time of filing the appeals. Please check the correct details in the profile of the assessee or profile created in the Form 35. If there is some issue, please re-enter that details. That appeal will get filed as per our experience. Data size limitations are provided. But if you face an issue, always file it as an annexure. If the data to be is exceeding 1000 words, use the annexure option. That can be done. Limit is provided. Various combinations are used by the government to provide the information and to derive the information. So that is to be kept in. This is the digital synchronization. Sir, how much time do I have? Hello?
सर कोई दिक्कत नहीं है सर, करते रहिए सर.
Okay, thank you, sir. We are talking about what is the foundation of the appeal documents. Form 35, statement of facts, grounds of appeal, condonation of delay is permissible for 30 days. It can be more, you can defend. And if it is accepted, then only the appeal is accepted. Additional grounds of appeal, additional evidence can be filed, order appealed against, and these are the documents. But when we look at, when we are discussing the arguments to be placed, please consider every law applicable which can give you the support to defend your matter. Because don't look at only from the income tax perspective. Please consider every law that is applicable to derive a defense, which we typically do when we file the appeals. Because sometimes if that information is not provided, we can take a support from the external law. Okay, under this law, it is to be done in this particular way, and that's why it has been done. So that is what the basically foundation that one has to take care. But before we file the appeal, what we have, it is our policy to examine what are the first level submissions. My sincere suggestions to everyone, please at first level of submissions, that is your assessment or a litigation or a show cause notices, file the documents in a meticulous manner, covering every aspect of the defense. Don't leave anything unturned. Please be very, very particular in drafting the submissions. And if any order is received, please derive what are the issues that are raised and do compare with the submission filed, whether that issue was reported, whether submissions were filed or not. That is to be done. What is the exposure involved in terms of the taxes? Whether considering the cost of the litigation, whether it is prudent to file the appeal or not. If the matter is small, then probably we may recommend to the taxpayer, don't proceed with the appeal matters at all. Examine the judicial pronouncements on the issues involved, documents, risk management strategy at our end, prepare a scratch drafting of the replies. If you need a professional support, take a professional support. People, if you approach any professional for software to draft, they are not interested in your clients. Please move out that from fear. if I approach any professional, he will take away my clients. Answer is absolutely no. Nobody is interested in that anymore. Earlier, yes, that was happening. But if you are doing the ongoing assessments, draft statement of facts made upon every fact of the matter and be as accurate and precise as possible. Grounds of appeal, please add as many drafts grounds as possible, even if they are, sometimes if you feel they are not relevant, but do take. At the most, it can be rejected. Additional grounds of appeals. Condonation of delay, additional evidence you got to prove. Why additional evidence you need to file? Why you were not able to file at the first stage of litigations? You got to prove that facts. After every hearing, please maintain the document maintenance properly. And after every submission filed, please write your own verdict for your own record. But one thing which we follow very stringently, if there are 10 issues are involved, we will report 10 issues. And for each submission, each issue, we will file our submission. Followed at the end, we will write the summary of the conclusion of the what relief we are looking from the Commissioner Appeals. Always introduce the proper cross-referencing of the references provided, either of judgments or the documents, whatever you're filing. Always apply for the personal hearing or the video conferencing. Post-hearing summary is the crux of the whole thing. And once you receive the order, review the order, compare with the post-hearing summary, whether it is aligned. And if it is aligned, we need not worry. If we have to file the post-appeal effort, please file. And if the decision is not in our favor, we can look for the alternative remedies, either of the writ petitions or a tribunal, High Court or Supreme Court, as the case may be. Let me give you one example very shortly of the clubbing. If a husband has given a gift to the wife, so any income that is derived by the wife is taxable in the hands of husband. Section 64(1)(4). We happened to come across such a matter. We had defended this matter. In fact, when we were arguing, we had filed the clubbing information correctly in the ITR. At the first stage of litigation, officer said, "Why have you reported clubbing? You should not have reported." Then we explained with the all logical reasoning why it is to be done correctly, and we got a fair order. And we succeeded. Same issue kept on cropping in again and again because high values were involved. So every time proper defense was filed, the reason was, I'll give you very simple. Property was bought in the name of wife. She was legal owner, and husband was not added as a additional name in the agreement. Huge value of the TDS was claimed by on account of section 194I. And we offered in proportionate income in the hands of husband and wife based on the funds given. And wife was claiming 100% TDS. So department came out saying you are claiming 100% TDS, but you are offering only 40% as an income. And 60% you are not offering. We proved and we said the intention is not to evade the taxes, but to offer the income correctly. And that is how the defense had happened, and we succeeded at the higher levels also. These are the various steps to be followed in the appeal. But once you download the ITD presentations of the filing the appeal, you will know all these steps. In this particular presentation, wherever the reference of regional faceless assessment was said, that has been done away. And allocation of the appeals to Commissioner Appeal is done on the automated allocation system, which is by the government. But here one thing that happens, there is no change. They will convey the reason to you. And if your appeal is rejected, you have only option to approach the jurisdictional high court under read through. There is no other option. If it is accepted, you proceed under the normal way. And this is what the typical, how the appeal is admitted. If it isn't in time, not to worry. If it is not in time, file the condonation of delay. They will check with the commissioner and they will either accept or reject. And that will be conveyed appropriately. And this is what that typically is done. Again, these are the all processes. I'm not spending much time on this because we are running short of time, as I understand. But here what we have discussed. Why the copies of internal copies of the informations exchange between the department can't be provided to the appellants. That is a drawback to my. There is no opportunity to file the cross objections, or there is no opportunity to do the cross objections in regard to the 133(6) proceedings. Are there any specific forms for the additional grounds? There is no form as of now. On a plain paper, you can prepare your additional grounds and upload. It can be a PDF file. But one thing one has to be clearly understood. The additional grounds of appeals and additional evidence are two different things as contemplated as per Rule 46A. Appellant should aptly validate and corroborate such a information. Additional grounds of appeal are grounds which you have not taken up at the first stage of litigation, whereas the additional evidence which you have never filed at the first level of litigations. So that angle has to be kept in mind. Absolutely, this is the biggest drawback. I was expecting this to be corrected, but it is not corrected as of now. But in future, let's see whether, and if they allow you to file the cross objection, probably it will simplify the life much better. And if such a recourse is provided, probably it will minimize the litigation because it will provide a relief under Article 14 of the Constitution of India. And it is always well-settled rule of law that the opportunity of examination, cross-examination, raising objections and submitting responses should be provided equally to all the affected parties. SOPs yet to be provided. And this is the chart of how do we file the additional evidence. They take a approval of the affected parties, which is fair again. And same logic applies to the phrase ground also. It can be either accepted or rejected. So this is where typically the flow of activity will look. These are various. This presentation will be shared with your team, so don't worry. And if you examine the flow, how it will go through, that will be explained. It is only by the system driven, just a simple. This information is received by the Commissioner of Appeals. Earlier, there was an issue of granting the video conferencing, but now it is mandated. Time limit of 30 minutes. Sometimes we don't even get a video conferencing link, but then we can should file the grievance instantly. Keep the screenshots for the record purpose. Ideally, they should be flexible to give the more time limits. because in 30 minutes, sometimes some complex matter cannot be explained. Adjournment. It should be provided liberally, considering the factual reasons. Time limit of 14 working days, according to me, sometimes should be more number of working days should be provided. And especially they should exclude the Saturdays and Sundays and the notified public holidays from the limit of 14 days if they don't want to change. Filing of documents in vernacular languages supported by the English transcripts may be provided with well-explained SOPs in simple, lucid, and precise manner. Let me tell you very honestly, documents can be uploaded in the vernacular language or a local language. There is no bar. But transcripts are mandatory because they don't understand the local language easily, because person sitting in Indore can understand Hindi, but the person sitting in the Chennai cannot understand the Hindi. That's the reality. And if that is provided, it will facilitate to help at all stage. Time limits should be provided for the disposal of the faceless appeals. As of now, there is no time limit. That's why appeals are not getting heard. Early hearing option should be provided, considering the genuineness of the requirements, especially considering the high value of the demands and the recovery proceedings. And sometimes it is definitely practically not possible to explain everything in writing. So there should be liberal enough to grant the physical hearing should be provided to the jurisdictional assessing officer or a commissioner of appeals, as the case may be, based on the merits, subject to approvals. If we look at the provisions of the faceless assessment center, there is an opportunity of providing the draft order, but such an option is not there in the faceless appeals. If this is provided in the appeal scheme, person will be able to file the cross objections or defense, and probably litigation can be minimized by considering the fresh submissions. RMS at the AET, which is used by the Faceless Appeal Center, especially if it is a adverse revisions, one should be free enough to provide the justice in the interest of the taxpayer. Stay of demand is unclear, but once you pay 20% tax payable as applicable, it is deemed key stay is granted. Powers of transfers are now governed by section 120. Communication only real-time alerts. Can appellant use the above notifications against the verdict of appeal? Yes, it can be used. If appellant is before a tribunal in view of the order passed under the old appeal scheme, can such matter be remanded back? Yes, it can be done. But how it will work under the new scheme, that is to be seen. At least there is no clarity available as far as that is concerned. Is old appeals adjudicated are bad in law? Considering the language of the notification issued on 29 December 2021, CBDT has notified that all appeals filed under section 246A and 248 of the Act, other than those in central charge and international tax charge. But in my opinion, they are not bad in law. Early hearing should be provided. Penalty proceedings. This is the typical process of appeal, though still it is not fully faceless as of now. But here there is no concept of review order, even that has been completely done away in alliance with the faceless appeal. Rectifications, still the rectification is physical. No, it's not faceless. Again, for rectification also there is no concept of review order. Now they have provided that even a tribunal proceedings will be faceless. Is such sangam possible? Especially when we talk about the faceless appeal center is under the aegis of Ministry of Finance, whereas the tribunal is under Ministry of Law. How it will work? That is the moot question, for which there is no clarity as of now, to my understanding. Proper modus of synchronization is required, especially in the cases when there is a remanded back or appeals which are set aside by the tribunal or referred back to the National Faceless Appeal Center. How the system will reinstate that, again, there is no clarity. And nothing has been notified as yet. Communication is electronic form of writing with dean only. Without dean, it's not valid. It will be communicated to the Commissioner of Appeals, appellant, or any other person as the case may be. Authentication will be either with DSC and EVC. All records. Delivery, registered account, SMS, email, mobile app. Time records and the hash records is to be seen very, very clearly. I personally feel, considering the technology developments and considering the economies of scales and achieving the objective of faceless interaction by doing away with the personal interface, unique dispensation of dynamic jurisdiction, we need to reorient ourselves or gear differently to deal with the new reality in the annals of assessment dynamics in our country. This will entail embracing new technology, learning, unlearning, and relearning newer ways of communicating to respond to inquiries, provide documents, statements, and submissions. But here one question that comes very for the senior people who are not tech savvy. Probably they may hire a good team of people under them and they who can execute the technology part, but they can always examine everything under their lenses as per their experiences. And then the benefits can be enjoyed sitting on the desk by them. That is my personal way. This is what the digital transformation is, the need of the day, and we need to accept. If we recall earlier, we used to have a telephone exchange, telephones, which were basics. Now all of us are using the smartphones. If we can adapt to the using of the smartphones, why not to the technology? Food for thought. No personal appearance in the centers. It's only video conferencing. At least I have not come across any cases where personal hearing has happened in person. Video conferencing, yes. And the technology provided is absolutely flawless. They had provided certain circumstances to be notified, under which circumstances they will allow personal hearing, means in person. But till now, nothing has been specified by the government at all. Again, proceedings are deemed to be judicial proceedings within the meaning of section 193, 196, 220 of Indian Penal Code, as the notification only prescribes mechanism and the modalities. The emphasis, if I examine, is more on the procedure prescribed. And High Court, in J.S. Parker's case, held that what was meant by saying that the Evidence Act did not apply to proceedings under the Income Tax Act was that the rigor of the rules of evidence contained in the Evidence Act was not applicable to income tax proceedings. But according to the digital developments, even a digital evidence can be supported as the evidence under the proceedings. That is what my personal view is. And all the procedures notified under the civil procedure law or a criminal procedure law or the law applicable under the evidence should be followed. That is my personal view. Especially when there are additions on account of the 14A or a 68 to 69C, how they were satisfactions were recorded, that should be provided to the taxpayer. That is my personal view. But as of now, that is not easily shared. But we can always file a request for the providing the same. This is very, very simple. Use of language, English or vernacular, both is permitted. But whenever you write anything, please write as if the reader who is receiving such a communication can understand very easily. ABC, accurate, precise, perfect, bold. You can be daring, audacious, and constructive. Don't use anything which is allegatory. Always be helpful and positive in your communication. You may use long sentence, short sentence, or a complex sentence, grammar usage, past, present, and future. But we always prefer, whenever we draft anything, it is short, simple, and to the point. Proper use of commas, punctuations, semicolons, exclamations, brackets, paras, and flow. You may use the flowcharts, absolutely no problem. Use of legal jargons. If you are sure of using the legal jargons, use, otherwise avoid. Judicial precedents and legal opinions. Judicial precedents one can use very, very effectively, but every judgment that you read has to be read under the lens. And you need to see whether it is relevant for your matter, or then only quote. Any legal opinion that you have obtained, in my personal opinion, it has got no bear. It doesn't make any difference as far as the assessment proceedings are concerned. If you have succeeded in the previous assessment orders, take a defense. Contextual references and linkages and submissions has to be properly analyzed. Always use the synopsis, issue calibrations, articulation, conclusions very effectively. Use of documentation, original copies and the transcripts. Whenever you are appearing for the video hearing, be properly dressed. Ensure you have a proper network. Recording is not permitted. Surroundings has to be pleasant. Please adhere to the time. But we can always request for the recording of the video conferencing. But whenever we are drafting any documents for filing, always sanitize the documents at least 2 or 3 times before uploading. You can use pictures, you can graphs, flowcharts, there is no bar. Summary records always should be there in the end, in the conclusion, and other aspects. These are the scanning policies which are provided on the portal itself, but invest in the high resolution scanner so that image is clear. Opportunities, threats, and challenges. Due to technology, you can provide the pan-India services sitting in your office. You may build up a professional network. You may enter into a revenue sharing arrangements. Technology has given you the option to build your written and spoken communication skills. Please maximize and optimize the use of technology and time. to save for yourself. Threats. If you have attitude issues, ki I will not do, you will not be able to do. But if you say ki I will be able to do, you will be definitely be able to do. This is my personal experience. Let me share you my own experience. I was too scared to use the computers. But then I decided ki I will learn. And I learned by trial and error method. And today, this presentation which I am presenting, that has been crafted by me personally. Technology issues we will face. So invest in technology, invest in the systems, language barriers, don't worry. Revenue sharing, don't worry. Fear of adverse orders. If you get adverse order for the first time, it is the starting of the success. That is my personal view. Every time you may not get the 100% favorable orders. And it is a interpersonal interactions is the we should need to build. Documentation is a key for any faceless proceedings. If our documentation is weak, then probably we may not succeed very reasonably. Neurosocial factors, it is just arising out of brain. We need to adapt. If we can't adapt, then there is no option available now. Communication needs to be improved. If we don't do a research on a regular basis, then without research, we cannot succeed in the appeal matters at all. Documentation, area operability. You may operate anywhere in the world. Don't worry. Technology is a blessing in disguise. Authorized registration has issues. Language transcripts has issues. But English translation can always be obtained. It may involve a cost. But if I look at from the international perspective, language transcripts are done on the spot by the government authorities. But that is not available in India as of now. But in future, it may be available. These are the various judgments which I have compiled, considering the principles of natural justice, which can be used effectively in the appeals, which says ki rules against bias or right to have a fair hearing or to duty to act fairly as well as neutrally. No one is judge in his own cause. We can always take our objections. Listen to other side. If the officer is conveying something which is not acceptable to him, please hear him positively and prepare a defense properly. That is what my personal view. And if you do the comparison, ultimately the technology is the key. The common purpose is no human interface or a face-to-face communication, transparency, efficiency, dynamic jurisdiction, team-based working, functional specialization. If you have a team of functional specialization or a team, then probably it will help. This we have discussed when we were discussing. SCN is serving of SCN is a must. And if it is not served, there are several judgments which I have quoted, which can be used. All proceedings must provide adequate opportunity of being heard. It has to be given. Adjournment should be granted liberally. The procedures cannot be reviewed. Orders has to be speaking. These are all of you may be aware because you are practicing advocates. It is not to supplement a lot, but it supplement it. It will operate in the areas not excluded by the legislature, held yes. Swadeshi cotton mills is the favorite judgment of Supreme Court. The principles can be applied when they are not expressly provided in the law. Various judgments are there of Supreme Court, which you can take as support. whether order passed in the violation of a natural justice is void or voidable, held void. And let me tell you one more thing. All of you can download the technical guide of ICI, of which I have written the whole article. Everything I have covered about the faceless appeals, and there is a FAQ on the faceless appeals also, where every question that I have come across in the appeal, I have given the replies to every question. They are crafted by me so that I can tell you very surely. You can use that as a reference. I'm just going a little fast because we are running short of time. And this article of natural justice is covered in detailed in that book. So you will get every reference what I have given it to here. So whatever the judicial precedents we are or references given here, and instances of lacuna that we have observed in the faceless asset, we can take a defense and we can succeed. That is my personal view. Even if it is technology enabled scheme. In future, penalties, rectifications, tribunals, it is already launched. High courts, Supreme Courts, international taxation matters, search seizure matters, dispute resolution scheme, demand and recovery proceedings, arbitrations and reconciliations, group assessments, unison of CBDT, CBI, Customs, Ministry of Law, digital synchronization or asynchronization, whether we can treat that as a double-edged sword. Conclusions. This chart we have seen, but here what I would like to drive a point in the interest of everyone. Normally, we are used to file the paper book at the tribunal level, but now we should have a habit of compiling the paper book at the assessment level also, as well as the appeal levels. That is my humble submission for everybody. It is a major change in the events of the tax administration in India. But considering the complex geography and the culture of the India, some reconfiguration and recalibration required time to stabilize. It should be aligned to Indian realities, especially considering the education, technology, geography, grassroots realities. I believe same to be transparent, just, painless, seamless, and beneficial system. In my opinion, if it is implemented properly, it will provide a positive climate in future, lead to lesser litigation, lesser propensity to seek alternative remedies. Whether faceless scheme is progressive or regressive, in my opinion, it is progressive. And it is a complete shift the way we look at it. I come back to my foundation of the house. It is now only faceless, no face value anymore. And this is the iceberg. So what we have discussed so far, it is only tip of the iceberg. There are many aspects to be discussed in the appeal scheme, but due to paucity of the time, I cannot discuss more. I hope I have justified my deliberation in the interest of all as anticipated by the organizers. I always say one should surround yourself with the people who talk about vision and ideas, not people. I appreciate each one of you. And with this, I will hand over the proceedings to the organizers. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
बहुत ही अच्छा लगा. Beautiful presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. मैं अब रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा अपने अंकित गर्ग जी से सहारनपुर से कि आज का हमारा वोटर थैंक्स कन्वे करें. उसके बाद आप राष्ट्रगान करेंगे. उस राष्ट्रगान के लिए मैं सबसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा जो भी डेलीगेट्स हैं, प्लीज अपने सीट पे आप खड़े हो जाएं, लेकिन अपने फोन म्यूट रखिएगा.
थैंक यू सर। आज नितिन भुट्टा सर हमारे बीच में, बड़ा अच्छा सर का व्याख्यान रहा। और एक इनकम टैक्स का सफर जिसे कहें, सफर चला शुरुआत से लेके अब तक। इनकम टैक्स में जो जो चेंजेस जैसे जैसे अपडेट हुआ, सर ने बड़े अच्छे तरीके से, और टाइम का बिल्कुल ये नहीं पता चला कब टाइम कैसे पूरा हो गया। और आगे भी इच्छा थी सर से काफी सारे हाई कोर्ट ऑर्डर्स डिस्कस करने की, कुछ क्वेश्चन आंसर्स करने की, लेकिन टाइम की लिमिट है। नितिन सर का मैं बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा अपने उपकाश की तरफ से, सभी एडवोकेट्स की तरफ से। बड़ा अच्छा आपका डेलिब्रेशन रहा, और उम्मीद है आगे भी आप हमें ऐसे मार्गदर्शन करते रहेंगे। और जब भी हम आपसे अनुरोध करें, आप हमारे बीच ऐसे ही आकर इसी तरह अपना डेलिब्रेशन दें। थैंक यू सर, थैंक्स अ लॉट।
थैंक यू सर।
अंकित जी, मैं देखिए अरविंद सिंघल साहब बैठे हैं क्या मुरादाबाद से?
नहीं सर,
चले गए?
चले गए सर।
अच्छा, ना उनका भी जरा ओपिनियन लेते हैं। बहुत बढ़िया, मतलब वो तो खैर भाई एक्सपर्ट है वो भी, नितिन सर की तरह बहुत इनकम टैक्स में। तो मैं उनका भी आशीर्वाद देते हैं। आज बैठे बड़ा हमें अच्छा लगा।
आई एम अ एवरेज पर्सन, डोंट वरी।
नहीं सर, वो भी ऐसी है जैसे आपका है डेलिब्रेशन, ऐसी उनका अरविंद सर का था, वो मुरादाबाद से हैं। ही इज आल्सो प्योरली डीलिंग इन इनकम टैक्स। तो थोड़ा एज का फर्क है, थोड़ा वो आपसे एज में थोड़ा ज्यादा है, लेकिन बट बहुत बढ़िया प्रेजेंटेशन उनका भी रहता है। तो आज मैंने कहा चलो उनका भी आशीर्वाद लेते हुए आए हुए थे। मतलब अच्छा लगा देख के भैया कि बैठे हुए थे थोड़ी देर पहले।
करेक्ट।
सबसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि प्लीज अपनी सीट पे सब खड़े हो जाएं। अंकित सर, फिर आप
जी सर। जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविण उत्कल बंग। विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंग। तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे। गाहे तव जय गाथा, जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे। भारत माता की
जय। थैंक यू वेरी मच एवरीवन। नितिन सर, बहुत अच्छा लगा। कितना भी थैंक्स दे सर उतना ही कम है आपको। मतलब तो हाईली ऑब्लाइज, बहुत बड़े सर। चाहेंगे कि सर फिर कभी थोड़े से इंटरवल के बाद फिर एक बार सर आपसे कहीं किसी और टॉपिक पे इनकम टैक्स पे सर इनकम टैक्स याद करा दीजिए। सब भूल गए इनकम टैक्स, क्योंकि लॉकडाउन ने इनकम टैक्स बढ़ा दिया।
करेक्ट।
अंकित सर।
जी सर।
सैलेश मोहन जी बोल के लेडीज का है, उनको बोलिए ना तो कॉन्टेक्ट नंबर दीजिए अपना।
कोई नहीं सर, वो प्रोवाइड करा देंगे सर। मैं आपको
थैंक यू वेरी मच एवरीवन। अगले हफ्ते फिर मुलाकात होगी किसी नए टॉपिक के साथ आप लोगों के साथ। किसी का कोई टॉपिक पर्टिकुलर, किसी का टॉपिक हो तो आप मुझको इन्फॉर्म कर दें, उसी टॉपिक पे फिर हम लोग डिस्कस कर लेंगे। थैंक यू वेरी मच एवरीवन। बाय बाय, गुड नाइट सर।
प्रेजेंटेशन जरूर शेयर कर दीजिए सर।
सबको गुड नाइट एंड सबको हैप्पी होली, बिलेटेड हैप्पी होली सबको।
थैंक यू वेरी मच मैम, थैंक यू वेरी मच। आप सबको बहुत बहुत होली शुभ।
सर मैं बिल्कुल अभी आपको व्हाट्सएप कर दूंगी नंबर पारस जी का।
जी प्लीज।
जी सर, गुड नाइट सर, सबको गुड नाइट।
गुड नाइट।
थैंक यू। नितिन सर, पीपीटी सर मेरे को मेरे नंबर पे शेयर कर दीजिएगा सर, या मेरी ईमेल आईडी
कर दूंगा, थोड़ा एडिट करके कर दूंगा मैं।
हाँ, जहाँ से थोड़ा एडिट कर दीजिएगा सर।
ठीक, ओके,
ठीक सर, ठीक है। थैंक यू वेरी मच एवरीवन।